Chapter 139. Xinyuan Chenshao and the others were speechless. They couldn't accept the fact that they had encountered two arrogant and overbearing youngsters in one day. Yi Kongqing frowned. Yi Qinghan's madness carried a domineering, awe-inspiring, and protective aura, but Xian Wuyu's aura was filled with evil and murderous intent. It was incompatible with the Great Path, yet it was forcefully integrated into one, which made Yi Kongqing particularly uncomfortable. Get out of the way. My target is Yi Qinghan, not you. Just don't provoke me, Xian Wuyu said coldly. He's here for Yi Qinghan again. Xinyuan Chenshao and the others looked at each other. Yi Qinghan was so good at provoking trouble. Oh, it's Brother Xian. Your glabella is dark. There will be a bloody disaster today. The parrot flew out from the crown prince's palace and said with a wretched face. Xian Wuyu looked at the stupid bird and his mouth twitched. He sneered and said, "It's you again, stupid bird. You're not dead yet. Today, I'll send you to the Western Paradise." "Oh, don't target this divine bird. I'm doing this for your own good," the parrot said seriously. "Is that so?" Xian Wuyu clenched his fists. He hated the parrot to the bone. He hated it even more than he hated Yi Qinghan. Of course. Look in the mirror. Is your glabella dark? Is a bloody disaster approaching? The parrot said with certainty. Why didn't you calculate before you came out whether you would have a bloody disaster or not? This divine bird is blessed by the heavens. May the heavens bless me and allow me to live as long as the heavens. Whoosh! Xian Wuyu was too lazy to talk nonsense. He flicked his finger and turned it into an invincible sword qi. It broke through the void and went straight for the parrot. The parrot's feathers stood up and flew straight up. The sword qi went through its butt and tore a few white feathers. It was so scared that it screamed crazily. You pervert! A gentleman uses his mouth and not his fists. If you have the ability, then let's discuss. Die! Carefree Leisure's face was filled with black lines from the nagging. The evil spirit sword appeared, and the sword qi was unstoppable. Its speed was extremely fast, and the rumbling of the sword Dao was endless. It completely surrounded the parrot, and sword shadows were everywhere. The parrot was terrified. It exploded with speed and dived down to the ground. The angle was incomparably tricky, and in the final moment when Leisure had surrounded it, it was able to escape. Wait, Brother Xian, let's talk things over. I'll definitely surrender this time. I'd be an idiot to believe you. Look behind you. Yi Qinghan is trying to ambush you. Go to hell. What a despicable thing. A man and a bird dashed madly, sometimes soaring into the sky, sometimes plunging rapidly to the ground, and their angles and speeds were extremely strange. This is the imperial capital. There are many people here. Do you want to implicate the innocent? Lu Guyun scolded coldly. Scram. This is my private matter. If you dare to interfere, more innocent people will suffer. Carefree Leisure didn't give face at all. The whole sky fell into darkness, and it was squeezing towards the imperial capital. The range was getting smaller and smaller, and the parrot was suppressed in the center, leaving it with no way out. The parrot cried out miserably. Lu Guyun and the others had an ugly expression. Carefree Leisure's combat power was probably even more terrifying than Yi Qinghan. The dark elements that filled the sky were extremely dense, and it was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. Although they didn't know what the hell this thing was, they could feel the danger. If they fought with Carefree Leisure, they would end up like Tang Quan. What kind of elemental profound is this? I feel that it can invade the origin soul. Yi Kongqing asked in shock. The profound laws are not something we can touch. We don't even know how many profound laws there are. However, this kind of thing is not something we can contend against. Xinyuan Chenshao said helplessly. The parrot was constantly roaring. The sharp elemental profound was all around them. It seemed like it was nothing, but in fact, it would definitely die if it touched it. I am a divine bird. How can you bear to kill me? I really surrender. The parrot begged. I don't need a tasteless bird like you. I will send you to the next world. Carefree Leisure was cold and emotionless. He was not moved at all. He confined the parrot in a small space and smiled coldly. He stabbed the parrot's body with his sword. The sharp sword Qi cut the parrot's body and made it spurt out blood. Boom! A figure rushed out from the Crown Prince Palace. The sword Qi broke the void and slashed at Carefree Leisure's back. "You are courting death. Get lost." Yi Qinghan was furious. Although the parrot had no moral integrity and was very immoral, it was still his spirit pet. Moreover, it often helped him. How could he let it die like this? Carefree Leisure was shocked. He couldn't care less about killing the parrot. He turned his hand and stabbed at the demon dragon blade behind him. Hum hum hum. The sword Qi was crisscrossing and evil. A wisp of evil aura roared out from the tip of the sword and rushed towards Yi Qinghan's body. Boom! The tip of the sword collided with Yi Qinghan's demon dragon blade. The two terrifying forces shattered the river of stars and rushed towards the highest heavens. Carefree Leisure's figure could not withstand the aftershock and was sent flying. Carefree Leisure's face paled. He looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. He had not expected Yi Qinghan to become so powerful in just 2 months. The elemental law of darkness around the parrot had no one to support it, so it quickly dissipated. The parrot pathetically escaped from the encirclement and rushed towards Yi Qinghan with a look of terror on its face. It hugged its shoulders and bawled like a child. This was the first time the parrot had tasted hell. It had no chance of escaping. If not for Yi Qinghan's sudden appearance, it would have died without a doubt. "Master, help me kill this guy. He almost killed me." The parrot roared angrily. "Shut up." Yi Qinghan was speechless. A black line appeared on his forehead. The parrot was helpless and dejected, not daring to utter another word. Yi Qinghan could not help but frown as he looked at the dissipating elemental law of darkness. He had never comprehended this elemental law of darkness in his previous life. The elemental law of darkness was very difficult to comprehend, and it rarely appeared in the world. He had never imagined that Carefree Leisure would actually know it. However, this elemental law of darkness was completely different from what he knew. "Is this the elemental law of darkness?" Yi Qinghan asked, puzzled. "You know quite a lot. You know the evil sword's inheritance, and you even know the law of darkness's elemental law of darkness." Carefree Leisure sneered. "Your law of darkness's elemental law of darkness is very rudimentary. It also contains demonic qi. You couldn't have devoured the demonic heart tree's elemental law of darkness, right?" Yi Qinghan was shocked. The demonic heart tree was very rare in the world. It contained the elemental law of darkness and demonic qi. "Just who are you? How do you know so much?" Carefree Leisure was inwardly shocked. He did not understand how Yi Qinghan could so quickly deduce that he had devoured the demonic heart tree. "You don't need to care about that. However, let me remind you that it's best if you don't fight right now. Instead, focus on comprehending the elemental law of darkness. Otherwise, when the demonic qi suppresses the elemental law of darkness, you will fall into a demonic state and become a killing machine. No matter how high your cultivation is, you won't have the intelligence of a soul." "So what?" Yi Qinghan warned coldly. Carefree Leisure sneered. He looked at Yi Qinghan and felt that he could not see through him at all. Just a few casual words from him were enough to make him shudder in fear. "I have the evil sword. Why should I fear a heart demon? I have already reached the other side of the sea of bitterness, the land of primal chaos. I still have to thank you for your words back then. Otherwise, why would I cross the sea of bitterness?" Carefree Leisure coldly said, "Are you looking for me this time, or do you want to fight me to the death?" Yi Qinghan asked with a frown. "It's not a fight to the death. This time, I'm looking for you to kill you. You won't be so lucky this time." Carefree Leisure disdainfully said, "Last time, you escaped quickly. If this divine bird had arrived a bit earlier, your face would have been burned to a crisp." The parrot angrily roared. "Wait a minute. I don't care what kind of hatred you have. In any case, you are not allowed to fight in my imperial capital. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Lu Guyun was furious. Within 2 days, 2 great battles had broken out in the imperial capital. The people of the empire were in a state of panic, and the ones who suffered were the common people. Yi Qinghan tightened his grip on the demon dragon's saber. He thought to himself, "This guy's luck is so strong. If I don't deal with him soon, it will be even more troublesome in the future. Why don't I just deal with him today? Carefree leisure. This time, we have decided to fight to the death. If you want revenge, then follow me. After making up his mind, Yi Qinghan soared into the sky, leaving behind a cold sentence. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the imperial capital. Master, where are we going? The parrot curiously asked. To the blood prison at the end of the Demon Valley continent. Find a chance to completely kill Carefree Leisure, Yi Qinghan coldly replied. Carefree Leisure rode the wind and the waves, turning into a sharp sword and rushing toward Yi Qinghan. The Milky Way in the void flew backward, and the earth sped backward. Everyone only had time to raise their heads to take a look. They saw a black shadow flash by, and then the two disappeared. Yi Qinghan and the god-slaying eagle once again combined into armor. Their wings covered the sky and covered the sun. They were dozens of meters long, and with a slight movement, they flew dozens of miles away. Half a day later, Yi Qinghan and Carefree Leisure rushed to the Demon Valley continent at almost the same time. Yi Qinghan did not stop. His target was the end of the Demon Valley continent, the blood prison that was filled with blood and bones. The blood prison's sea of blood surged, and a baleful aura filled the air. The stench of blood was nauseating, and the sky was red. The surrounding rocks had been soaked in water for thousands of years and were dyed crimson. Bones floated and piled up like mountains. It was a terrifying sight. There seemed to be a giant beast surging at the bottom of the sea, rolling up tens of thousands of waves that slammed toward the end of the void. Yi Qinghan flapped his wings and rushed to the sky above the blood prison. He was shocked to find that there were no laws descending here. Even the origin of water was suppressed. What is this place? It can actually suppress the great Tao laws. Yi Qinghan secretly muttered to himself. As soon as Carefree Leisure entered the blood prison, he immediately felt the endless sea of blood devouring everything. Even the origin of great Tao laws would be devoured here. His elemental profound meaning of darkness could not even display 1% of its power here. Carefree Leisure was incomparably powerful. His invincible king battle posture burst forth as he looked down at Yi Qinghan and said arrogantly, I will kill you today even without using the elemental profound meaning of darkness. Whether you can kill me or not will depend on your luck. Today, we might as well finish you. Yi Qinghan frantically gathered his aura and flapped his wings, rolling up the roaring sea of blood. If I can't kill you today, I will definitely not seek revenge in the future. Carefree Leisure shouted. He gathered all the true essence in his body and turned it into a long dragon that gushed out from the evil spirit sword. The evil spirit sword Tao suppressed everything within 100 miles, and the eerie aura of the blood prison became even more sinister. Chapter 140. The evil sword principle suppressed the gloomy and terrifying blood prison. The blood waves instantly calmed down, as if the heavenly Tao had descended. The cold and domineering sword chi was filled with coldness and evil, as if a demon had appeared. The demon dragon saber also erupted with the aura of a mad dragon, fighting for the power of the blood prison. The aura of the blood prison was suppressed to the extreme, and the weak creatures were directly crushed into powder. The eerie blood sea was like the Dead Sea. It was extremely calm, without even a wave. Master, I won't drag you down here. After you deal with him, I'll come back and cheer for you. The parrot's feathers bristled. It was suppressed by the aura here and could not breathe. After saying that, it fled. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. Obviously, he did not expect the parrot to help him. He locked his divine sense on Xian Wuyu and was extremely cautious. Xian Wuyu was not an ordinary person. At this time, he had forcefully absorbed the origin of the demon heart tree and comprehended the elemental profound. In addition, he had the demon spirit treasure body, which was 3 small realms higher than him. It was hard to say whether he would win or not. Even if he won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. He did not know if there were any terrifying existences in the blood prison. He had to preserve some of his strength. Yi Qinghan secretly thought. The Azure Dragon arm blocked the demon dragon saber and merged with it, forcibly stealing most of the blood prison's aura. The great revered martial spirit roared out and supported the golden body. He looked down at Xian Wuyu, and his peak battle strength reappeared. The aura of a Tao master. You are indeed not an ordinary person. The reincarnation of a powerhouse. There is actually reincarnation with memories in the world. I really want to study your soul. I want to see what the reincarnation road is like. Xian Wuyu's eyes flashed. He was shocked, but more than that, he was happy. He did not care about such a powerful soul at all. His Tao heart was as stable as a rock. As long as they were at the same level, Yi Qinghan's soul from his previous life could not affect him. As expected of someone who has inherited the evil sword way. You were actually able to discover my martial saint spirit in an instant. Even Tang Quan and the others didn't. I have to say that you are very lucky. It's a pity. Yi Qinghan's killing intent surged. He had already made up his mind to not allow Xian Wuyu to have the chance to reveal his identity. What's a pity? Xian Wuyu arrogantly asked. It's a pity that you're going against me. Yi Qinghan instantly became incomparably tyrannical. A supreme aura rushed out of his body as he raised the demon dragon saber. Baleful aura filled the air and stirred up a myriad of waves. Combined with the law of water, it transformed into a roaring golden dragon. Hum hum hum. As soon as these words were spoken, killing intent overflowed in all directions. The two of them attacked at the same time. The blood prison, which was like a sea of death just a moment ago, raised two bloody canopies and crazily collided from the north and south. So what if I go against you? Do you still think you're a great marshal revered? Xian Wuyu disdainfully mocked Yi Qinghan. The evil spirit sword in his hand was filled with an evil aura. The cold light from the sword made it seem even more evil. With a flick of the sword, it shattered the void and turned into a flying sword. It pierced through the bloody sky and went straight for Yi Qinghan. Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua. The blade and sword collided, and a curtain of blood spilled out. An endless rain of blood fell from the sky. The two separated as soon as they collided. Their bodies were bathed in a river of blood, and their auras were majestic. A probing attack was launched against the sea of blood. Waves of blood soared into the sky. The eerie skeleton emitted a golden radiance, announcing to the world how glorious its owner was when he was alive. Even if he had died for thousands of years and his soul had dissipated, the skeleton would still exist in the world. The powerful corrosive blood sprinkled on Xian Wuyu and Yi Qinghan's clothes. It directly melted their clothes, revealing their well-built muscles. Divine light flowed, and it was as if the Son of God had descended. Use your strongest battle power. How long are you going to test me like this? I like to decide the victor with a single move. It's either you die or I die. Xian Wuyu was incomparably arrogant as he shouted coldly. As you wish. Then I'll let you see how strong my peak battle power is. Yi Qinghan's domineering aura leaked out. The invincible war revered of those years had returned. The tyrannical Yi Qinghan who fought against 100 revered martial artists by himself, and 10 great revered martial artists whose names shook the entire Shaolong region had returned. He held the demon dragon saber tightly with both hands. His black hair danced wildly, and his blood-stained pants fluttered in the wind. The Saber God Chapter. Only those who control the saber can become one with the saber, turning it into a saber and accumulating power. They can seize the power of the heavens and earth, shake the universe, and intimidate eternity. Their golden body will exist forever, and they will stand proudly on top of the clouds. His voice was vicissitudes of life and majesty, and it was vast and mighty. Yi Qinghan had turned into a golden saber. His body was wild and tyrannical, and his saber and sword were unstoppable. Xian Wuyu looked at Yi Qinghan's terrifying aura. No matter how strong his Tao heart was, it was shaken until it was numb. He felt dizzy, and he could not hold the evil spirit sword in his hand. The evil spirit sword wailed, as if it wanted to submit to the saber god. Yi Qinghan's power had already reached its peak. His true origin boiled and poured into his legs and arms. At the same time, he exerted force and rolled up 1,000 miles of blood waves. He turned into the strongest heavenly dragon that cruised on the sea of blood. Extreme divine dragon steps. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure filled the sky. It was as if countless divine sabers had broken through the void from the ancient world and surrounded Xian Wuyu. The illusory figure was so real that it was impossible to distinguish the afterimage from the real body. Heavy madness sky-splitting style. The saber split the heavens and the earth and shook eternity. The sea of blood surged and pressed down to the bottom of the sea. Evil spirit sword way. Boom boom boom. As soon as the sword way was used, evil chi was born. The gloomy and cold sword chi filled the blood prison and extended into the depths. Before the two people's crazy actions touched each other, an even more powerful aftershock erupted, alarming the supreme existence in the blood prison. A terrifying behemoth surged out from the depths, pushing all the blood waves in the depths to the edge of the blood prison, wanting to drown the Demon Valley continent and the entire Owl Fall star. Carefree Leisure and Yi Qinghan were both stunned. They hadn't expected that before their strongest attack had even been launched, there would already be such a mess behind them. The terrifying aura that they had gathered with great difficulty stopped. They turned around and couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Half of the giant's head was exposed. It was as big as a small mountain. The two horns on its head were like 5th grade or 6th grade combat weapons. Its huge eyes were as dazzling as the sun. The skin on its head was as bumpy as a mountain range. With a snort, 2 huge blood swords pierced through the sky. It was even more powerful than a Life Palace Realm warrior's attack. Half of its mouth was exposed. Its fangs were sinister and could definitely shatter a 5th grade combat weapon. What is this thing? Xian Wuyu did not care about revenge. He was terrified by the giant behind them. I've never seen it before. This thing is definitely a primitive creature from the ancient times. Otherwise, the path of the Owl Fall planet will stop it from entering. If it can't stop it, the entire path of the Owl Fall planet will collapse. Yi Qinghan's hair stood on end. This thing was beyond his understanding. It was at least at the peak of 5th grade. Even if he was at his peak, he might not be able to kill it. Let's get out of here quickly. Otherwise, once it gets angry, we won't be able to survive. The Owl Fall planet might collapse. Yi Qinghan did not care about silencing them anymore. He turned around and fled toward the outside of the blood prison. Fuck, what kind of shitty place did you choose? Xian Wuyu was furious. He fled toward the Demon Valley continent at a speed comparable to Yi Qinghan's. Fuck off. How would I know that a 4th grade planet would have a primordial monster at the peak of 5th grade? Yi Qinghan was furious. He sped up crazily and performed the dragon god's steps to the extreme. In an instant, he left Xian Wuyu far behind. A deep roar that contained the vicissitudes of time and the terrifying soul attack could be heard by the entire Owl Fall planet. The powerhouse at the limit of the Fate Palace turned pale and collapsed to the ground. The ferocious beasts above the Demon Valley continent all knelt down. The Emperor of all beasts. This giant monster was the Emperor of the Owl Fall planet, the Emperor of all beasts. If Yi Qinghan and Xian Wuyu turned around, they would definitely see that the giant monster's head was imprisoned in the blood prison by a dark iron chain. With a slight movement, the Law of Darkness, which contained a destructive aura, would rush into the giant monster's mind and torture it. It would be suppressed and leveled up, so it did not dare to move. The iron chain ran through the blood sea. They did not know how long it was, but they were sure that the giant monster could not leave the blood prison. Otherwise, the Owl Fall planet and even the Owl Dragon region would be in trouble. The parrot's legs were weak. It watched Yi Qinghan gallop past it. Its 2 little claws grabbed the legs of its trousers and swayed in the wind. Oh my god, what did I just see? It's the Kuei ox from the primordial age. It's the hybrid son of the divine dragon. How could it appear on this small planet in the middle of nowhere? The parrot cried out in horror. The Kuei ox? Yi Qinghan gasped. The divine dragon had a 9th grade bloodline, and the Kuei ox meant an 8th grade bloodline. Even if it was sealed in the blood prison for hundreds of thousands of years, its combat strength would not be inferior to a 6th grade bloodline. Most importantly, it was affected by such a heavy blood sea. Once it escaped, it would be a disaster that would destroy the world. This kind of creature could easily live for hundreds of thousands of years. Its vitality was even more terrifying than that of a human emperor-level powerhouse. The parrot did not dare to look at the Kueox. Otherwise, it would also know that it could not leave the blood prison. Unfortunately, the two humans and one beast only knew how to run for their lives. Xian Wuyu was dozens of miles behind them. His hair stood on end and he shouted, "Did you plan this from the beginning? Are you trying to kill us with a borrowed knife?" Yi Qinghan did not bother to respond. The safest thing was to escape the Demon Valley continent. Ferocious beasts of 6th grade and above did not care about the distance at all. The Kueox roared, its voice filled with killing intent and resentment. The 9 sons of the dragon had been trapped in this small world for thousands of years. They had also been tortured by the law of darkness, and their vitality was constantly dissipating. No one could bear it, let alone such a ferocious beast. Yi Qinghan and Xian Wuyu's stellar transposition were definitely the fastest in the world. No one in the same realm could be as fast as them. Pressure was their motivation. The two of them broke through the wind and waves, flying through the forest. It took them 4 hours to arrive, but it only took them 2 hours to leave. Their speed had doubled. Once they left the Demon Valley continent, the two of them fell into the Demon Valley forest, gasping for breath and weak from head to toe. They did not even know if they could stand up, let alone fight. The parrot was a spiritual beast after all. Although it was intelligent, it was more afraid of the Kueox. It did not even want to move now, let alone provoke Xian Wuyu. "You two idiots, you actually woke up the Kueox." The great divine bird was almost killed by you two before it could even become the divine emperor of all beasts. The parrot was stubborn. Even now, it still wanted to criticize the two of them for being ignorant. Chapter 141. The two of them fell into the Demon Valley and laid flat on a grassy plain. As they breathed in the fragrance of the grass, their blood gradually calmed down and their stiff muscles relaxed. Yi Qinghan recovered faster than Xian Wuyu. He was the first to sit up and stared coldly at Xian Wuyu. Xian Wuyu's hair stood on end. "What are you trying to do?" Xian Wuyu asked cautiously. "What am I trying to do? You're looking for me and you're asking me what I'm trying to do." Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched as his killing intent surged. He raised his demon blade and pounced at Xian Wuyu. Xian Wuyu's blood was filled with impurities. He had used all his strength to escape from the blood prison and wasted a large amount of his essence. If he were to fight now, he wouldn't be able to use much of his combat strength. When he saw Yi Qinghan pouncing at him, he immediately mobilized the element of darkness around him to counterattack Yi Qinghan. He hid behind the element of darkness and tried his best to recover. The element of darkness was weak but could block all attacks. It could even erode countless lives. In addition, there was a lot of devil chi in the element of darkness, making it even more sinister. Yi Qinghan's blade seemed to have hit a sponge. He couldn't use any strength at all. With a flash of light, Yi Qinghan's fingertips trembled as he put away the demon dragon blade. He formed a seal with his palms and formed a water dragon that wrapped around the element of darkness. His palms were wrapped in the element of water and he directly inserted them into the element of darkness. His divine sense was wrapped in the endless water element and greedily comprehended the element of darkness. The patterns of the element of darkness appeared in his sea of consciousness. Suddenly, the divine martial imperial codex in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness moved. It automatically flipped open and forcefully absorbed the element of darkness. In the end, even the water element was plundered into his sea of consciousness and gathered into a ball. It was the true meaning of the element of darkness. It didn't have any offensive power and constantly hovered above his sea of consciousness. Yi Qinghan was overjoyed. To be able to plunder the true meaning of an element, how lucky must one be? Xian Wuyu was furious. He felt the element of darkness in his body pouring out crazily. His control over the element of darkness was getting weaker and weaker. He felt like he was about to lose his Upanishad. His darkness elemental profound had been plundered from the demon heart tree, so he didn't have much understanding of it. If Yi Qinghan plundered all the darkness elemental profound, then he would never be able to control it again, unless he plundered it again one day or comprehended it anew. You're courting death. Xian Wuyu roared. He wanted to fight for the ultimacy, but how could he win against the Imperial God Martial Arts Code? The more he struggled, the more he lost. In the end, he was helpless. Seeing that he was about to lose all of the dark elements, he could only forcibly cut off the external dark elements. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood essence and looked at Yi Qinghan with a pale face. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a faint smile. This true meaning of profound had come too easily. As long as he comprehended it for half a year, he would be able to comprehend a second true meaning of elements. Moreover, it would be a much more powerful element. Thank you for your generous gift, Brother Xian, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Kakik, Idle Sky gnashed his teeth in anger and glared at Yi Qinghan. He realized that if there was a spiritual pet, then there must be a master. This pair of despicable people, still trying to act innocent after taking advantage of him. Don't be angry, I'm helping you. If you don't comprehend the dark elements, something will happen sooner or later. Why don't I help you comprehend it? Yi Qinghan sneered and summoned the Devil Dragon Saber. His aura surged as if he wanted to destroy everything. How did you do it? How did you forcefully steal my dark elements? Xian Wuyu was shocked and asked unwillingly. Do you think I'll tell you? Yi Qinghan snorted and gathered his aura and saber. The Azure Dragon arm shone with golden light as he raised the saber and slashed. Boom! The Devil Dragon Saber transformed into a demonic dragon and shattered the shackles. The essence of the spiritual herbs on the ground was instantly sucked dry and turned yellow. The spiritual energy in the sky surged madly towards Yi Qinghan's body and turned into majestic true energy that poured out of the Devil Dragon Saber. Evil Sword Dao. The Xian Wuyu's Paradise Sword Dao crazily crushed everything in its path. The great Dao rumbled and the aura in front of him collapsed. The two attacks collided in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. The aftermath of the attacks surged into the Milky Way. The earth was undulating and the lone mountain collapsed. The sand and stones pierced through the sky and were ground into fine powder that was blown away by the wind. The two individuals' arms collapsed, and blood dyed the heavens. Golden blood was exposed outside, directly ignited, burning the void. Blood flowed out from the ghastly arms. The golden battle bones and sinister demonic bones flowed with radiance, incomparably powerful. True energy flowed and quickly healed their wounds. Their aura surged and the Emperor's aura rushed out of their bodies, representing the unparalleled powerhouses on the Owlfall planet. Although they were only in the Paradise realm, their combat strength was higher than the average first and second steps of the Fate Palace realm. Powerhouses in the third and fourth steps of the Fate Palace realm would not have much chance of survival and might not be able to compete with them. Since you've devoured my quintessence of the dark element, I'll devour your water quintessence. Xian Wuyu roared and wanted to punch Yi Qinghan to death. Come and devour it if you can. Let's see how I'll take all the remaining dark element from you. Yi Qinghan's aura was unparalleled. His combat strength was at its peak again. With the soul of a grandmaster supporting him, the water quintessence and dark quintessence appeared at the same time, forming a yin-yang 8 trigrams that crushed Xian Wuyu. Xian Wuyu had less than 1/10 of the dark element in his body and had not comprehended the quintessence, so he did not have much attack power. His evil sword style and frenzy sword style were on par. Now that he was at a disadvantage, Xian Wuyu could not help but feel angry. He had lost again. After losing 3 times in a row, Xian Wuyu was flustered and exasperated. Master, go for it. Kill him. I'll support you. The parrot hid far away. Even Yi Qinghan did not care about this kind of bird. If it was not useful, he would have roasted it and eaten it long ago. Damn it. The next time I see you, I'll chop you into minced meat. Xian Wuyu knew that there was no need to continue the fight. He turned around and fled after saying those words. How could Yi Qinghan allow him to escape? He raised his saber and charged over. With a slash of his saber, he sliced through space and time, shattering 1,000 li. The saber light slashed across Xian Wuyu's back, and the blood sword collided. Pooh! Xian Wuyu suffered a heavy blow and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Borrowing the power of Yi Qinghan's attack, he fled into the distance. However, Yi Qinghan chased after him relentlessly. Extreme Dao Divine Dragon steps were extremely fast, and the distance between them was instantly shortened. Void Shatter, Stellar Transposition. Xian Wu's hair stood on end as he felt the aura of death envelop him. He could no longer care about anything else and directly used the forbidden technique, Blood Shield Technique. He spat out a mouthful of blood essence and instantly shattered the void, disappearing without a trace. Yi Qinghan frowned. He could only feel a bit of Xian Wu's soul fluctuation around the space. There was no other trace of him. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath, put away the Devil Dragon Saber, and returned to the Demon Valley. This guy's luck is very rich. It's understandable that he couldn't be killed. However, he didn't have time to reveal my identity this time. He won't be able to recover his battle strength in half a year. After this battle, he will definitely hide and comprehend the true meaning of Dark Element. The next time he appears, it will be difficult to deal with him. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath, put away the Devil Dragon Saber, and returned to the Demon Valley. Master is mighty, the parrot cried out excitedly. Come up. Let's go back, Yi Qinghan said coldly. The parrot smiled embarrassedly and flew back to Yi Qinghan's shoulder, no longer uttering a word. Yi Qinghan sped through the void, reversing time and space. His speed was extremely fast, and he arrived at the Lulan Empire's capital after one day. Emperor Yi had already awakened. His radiance was dazzling. Wearing a 7-colored glazed princess dress, he looked noble and unparalleled. A zither song filled the capital with boundless vitality and joy. Emperor Ye's body was covered with spirit crystals. A powerful spirit gathering array gathered all the spirit energy in the sky and crazily surged into his body. His cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, without any bottlenecks. Within 2 hours, he had rushed to the 8 stars of the Bitter Sea realm, and there were no signs of stopping. The Zither Immortal Crimson Demon Physique was a unique treasure bestowed by the heavens. It was enough to instantly kill 10,000 spirits. Yi Mingxi listened to the zither song and danced with the 4th grade set spirit sword. She had mastered the essence of the imperial sword technique. Her sword chi was swift and fierce, shattering the void. The speed of her advancement was actually a little slower than Emperor Ye's. Yi Qinghan arrived at the Crown Prince Palace. Seeing Yi Mingxi's terrifying advancement speed, he was extremely surprised. Emperor Yi had the Zither Immortal Crimson Demon Physique. Even if he jumped to the Grotto Heaven realm in an instant, he wouldn't be surprised. However, Yi Mingxi's physique was clearly a mortal physique. How could she progress so quickly? Could it be that I have misjudged her? Yi Qinghan frowned. He wasn't sure if Yi Mingxi's advancement speed was a good thing or a bad thing. Yi Qinghan, who had a strong desire to control, stared at Yi Mingxi. She was not even 6 years old and had a mortal physique. She had almost stepped into the Grotto Heaven realm. This kind of talent had already surpassed his own. Anyone would be alarmed. An hour later, Emperor Yi and Yi Mingxi had both reached the 9 stars of the Bitter Sea realm. They stopped cultivating and sat cross-legged on the ground. They went to the other side of the Bitter Sea and observed the birth of the great Tao in the land of chaos. The two of them had almost no inner demons. Their journey was unimpeded. Seeing this, Yi Qinghan's heart trembled. This kind of talent had already instantly killed countless people. Including himself, who had a special physique, it paled in comparison. How is this possible? Could it be that they are young and ignorant of the ways of the world? Their hearts are pure, so they have no inner demons? Yi Qinghan's fingertips trembled as he muttered to himself. After half a day, the moonlight descended and poured down on the faces of the 2 little girls. They were sparkling and translucent, like flawless jewels. Yi Mingxi was the first to wake up. She began to bitterly cultivate the profundities of the laws. Emperor Yi was still in an epiphany, comprehending the great Tao of the endless universe. At this moment, the advantage was obvious. Emperor Ye's Zither Immortal Crimson Demon Physique was ultimately superior to Yi Mingxi's. The longer one spent in the Bitter Sea, the more insights one would gain. Late into the night, Emperor Ye's body was illusory, as if he had merged into the great Tao. He was like a fairy, faintly discernible. If Yi Qinghan had not seen her with his own eyes, he would not have been able to sense her existence. Phew! Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He knew that Emperor Yi was about to wake up. Yi Mingxi's face was filled with exhaustion. She opened her bright eyes and looked at Yi Qinghan in front of her. He, big brother, I'm about to break through to the Grotto Heaven realm. Yi Mingxi stood up as if she was presenting a treasure. Little master is wise and mighty, unparalleled in the world. The parrot flattered. Of course. Yi Mingxi's skin had been thickened by the parrot. She accepted the praise without any modesty. Mingxi, come here. Let me take a look at your spiritual sea. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. Yi Mingxi obediently walked in front of Yi Qinghan. She removed the defense of her spiritual sea. The boundless spiritual sea was vast and boundless. It was filled with the great Tao and intertwined with the great Tao. Yi Qinghan was incomparably shocked. Chapter 142. The boundless sea of consciousness was vast and boundless, filled with great Taos and intertwined laws. The sea of consciousness was more like the universe. There was a cycle of great Tao. Yi Mingxi seemed to have two souls, one controlling the body and the other controlling the sea of consciousness. They did not interfere with each other but helped each other. Yi Qinghan's body tensed up. He had lived for hundreds of years and read countless historical records, but he had never seen such a terrifying scene. Is she the second life of a supreme almighty? Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. His worldview had been completely subverted by Yi Mingxi's sea of consciousness. Yi Mingxi's soul that controlled the sea of consciousness seemed to trust Yi Qinghan and did not resist, allowing Yi Qinghan to do as he pleased. When he saw Yi Mingxi's sea of consciousness clearly, he realized that her short time on the other side of the sea of bitterness was not because she lacked epiphanies, but because she was involved in almost all the great Taos and laws. She quickly understood them. There was no need to waste time. Yi Qinghan was increasingly certain that Yi Mingxi was definitely not the first life, but a reincarnated body. It was just that she did not have a soul for the time being. She was at least at the divine martial realm in her previous life. She was much stronger than me. Yi Qinghan looked at the ethereal laws and profound meanings. They were difficult to understand, but Yi Mingxi seemed to be born with them. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. There were too many mysteries in the world, and he did not understand even 1/10,000th of them. After leaving the sea of consciousness, Yi Qinghan rubbed Yi Mingxi's head and said softly, "Rest first. Go back and comprehend the sea of bitterness before breaking through to the Grotto Heaven realm." Yi Mingxi nodded and left first. Emperor Yi woke up slowly and opened his dim eyes. They seemed to reflect the chaos, deep and boundless, making people not dare to look at them directly. "Master, my eyes are completely dark." Emperor Yi trembled. His vision was pitch black, but his consciousness was clearer. He could even see the great Taos. Yi Qinghan frowned. The higher Emperor Ye's cultivation was, the more powerful the seal on his eyes would be. According to this calculation, when he reached the realm of Tao Master, wouldn't his divine sense be sealed as well? Gently lifting his eyelids, Yi Qinghan discovered that Emperor Ye's pupils had an illusory image of a divine zither, which happened to seal his eyes. It was incomparably majestic, like an ancient imperial weapon. Once it left his body, it could crush an unparalleled expert. It shouldn't be a problem. The divine zither must have done this for a reason. Maybe it wants you to use your heart to comprehend the way of the zither and shield yourself from the evilness of the world so that you can keep your heart pure and comprehend the purest way of the zither. Yi Qinghan speculated softly. If I'm not wrong, once you've stabilized your state of mind and are able to accept the mercilessness of the great Tao, the divine zither will automatically break your seal. For now, Master will be your eyes, so there's no need to think too much. Rest first. With two more monsters around him, Yi Qinghan's pressure multiplied. After comforting Emperor Yi, he returned to his room and closed himself to comprehend the profound meaning of the dark element. With a large amount of the dark element in his sea of consciousness, it was much easier for him to comprehend the profound meaning of the dark element. Some terrifying geniuses needed hundreds or even thousands of years to comprehend the profound meaning of the laws without the dark element. However, with the dark element, all the textures appeared in his sea of consciousness. He only needed to slowly strip away a part of the dark element to comprehend the profound meaning of the laws. Yi Qinghan fell into silence as soon as he entered seclusion. No one would have thought that he would be in seclusion for half a year. There was an invisible barrier around the room that pushed away anyone who approached it. Only Emperor Yi could enter and leave freely. Even after Emperor Yi entered the room, he didn't disturb Yi Qinghan. He merely played the guqin to the side, purifying Yi Qinghan's soul and expelling his exhaustion. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, he would leave. The cycle repeated itself, returning every day for half a year. During this half a year, many major events happened on the owl falling star. The younger generation sprouted like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. Countless young experts were mercilessly killed. Emperor-level expert, the #1 expert of the owl falling star, Ling Chen, had his origin stolen and his essence devoured by Xian Wuyu. This shocked the entire owl falling star. However, this was only the beginning. Soon after, Wang Shizhi was also devoured, causing the younger generation experts to panic. No one dared to rise up again. Lu Outyen cultivated the great reincarnation sword art painstakingly. His reincarnation intent had already formed an embryonic form and his progress was extremely fast. In addition to his discussions with Yi Mingxi, he broke through to the Grotto Heaven realm within 3 months. With one sword, reincarnation appeared. Half a year later, he entered the second step of the Grotto Heaven realm and rose up again. He challenged Xian Wuyu but lost miserably in one move. However, he was saved by Yi Mingxi. With the help of Emperor Yi and the 3 experts, Xian Wuyu was defeated and fled. The expert at the end of his lifespan had already fallen into a deep slumber. He hoped to delay until Yi Qinghan woke up and obtained his true teachings. Perhaps he could break through to the Tao sovereign realm. The owl falling star was now the world of the younger generation. After Lu Outyen failed once, he disappeared and returned to the Crown Prince Palace to cultivate. His reincarnation sword art became even more refined. However, his talent was not as good as Yi Mingxi's. Yi Mingxi actually managed to cultivate the great reincarnation sword art to the small success stage within half a year. She could actually match Lu Outyen with just her physical body. Lu Outyen smiled bitterly. Yi Mingxi really knew how to shock people. However, the most terrifying one was not Yi Mingxi, but Emperor Yi. At this moment, her eyes had been completely sealed by the divine zither. There was no light at all. She did not dare to open her eyes at all. Otherwise, everything in front of her would be obliterated. Even if it was a Grotto Heaven realm expert, their Tao heart would be shattered and they would die. Emperor Yi was not surprised by this skill. Instead, he felt a little hopeless. He felt like a monster. Other than occasionally playing the zither to help Yi Mingxi and Lu Outyen comprehend the reincarnation sword art, he spent the rest of his time hiding in Yi Qinghan's room. On this day, a strong dark element gushed out from Yi Qinghan's room. It then spread throughout the Crown Prince Palace. After an hour, it covered the sky and the sun. The entire imperial capital was plunged into darkness. It was as if doomsday was coming. However, the dark element did not carry any terrifying offensive power. Otherwise, the entire imperial capital would turn into a ghost town in an instant. It would turn into hell and devour countless lives. Roar. After the dark element enveloped the imperial capital, a ray of water elemental profound turned into a silver water dragon. It swam between heaven and earth. It contained endless vitality and comforted the living beings in the city. The dark element and water element intertwined with each other. It was dense and surging. Instantly, it woke up the 3 experts who were in a deep sleep. They were not surprised but happy. The appearance of so many elements meant that Yi Qinghan was about to wake up. Whether we can survive this will depend on Taoist Yi. Yi Kongqing said nervously. You still have more than 10 years of life. I only have 2 years left. I will die at any time. Even if Taoist Yi is willing to help, you will not be able to reverse the situation. Lu Guyun smiled bitterly. The arrogance of a general in the past had been gradually eroded by time. What was left was the sadness of a hero past his prime. Xinyuan Chenshao was similar to Lu Guyun. He was past his prime. His blood essence was dim and he would die at any time. Suddenly, there was a burst of light. The dark element and water elemental profound dispersed. The imperial capital was bright again. A horrible aura was awakened in the Crown Prince Palace. It was as if an ancient expert had appeared. It was majestic. Yi Qinghan walked out of the Crown Prince Palace. His hair was as black as ink. It reached his waist and swayed with the wind. His handsome face had become a little pale because he had not seen the sun for a long time. However, his temperament became deep and ethereal. He was like an element that existed but could not be seen. In the second step of the Tao Insight realm, although he had only broken through a small realm in half a year, his combat strength had soared. Taoist Yi, congratulations on your breakthrough. Xinyuan Chenshao and the others immediately greeted him and said respectfully. Yi Qinghan's deep eyes glanced at them as if he had seen through their origin. He knew that they were about to die. They came out to greet him at this time. They definitely wanted to get his advice and hoped to break through to the Tao Master realm. Well, sorry to disturb you, Yi Qinghan said lightly. Don't mention it. Taoist Yi, do you have time to discuss the skills of cultivation? Lu Guyun said hurriedly. Yi Qinghan looked at the anxious Lu Guyun and could not help but smile. He could understand. Everyone would be anxious when they knew that they only had 1 or 2 years left. If there was hope, they would not let go of any opportunity. However, these 3 people had saved his life. They were not bad people. They had their own bottom line and principles. It was okay if he could help them. Moreover, after entering the Fate Palace, he would enter the Xiaolong territory sooner or later. He needed some help. Lu Outyen was one of the talents that he had cultivated. Unfortunately, his realm was too low. Prepare some materials. I will help you if I can. Whether you can enter the Tao Master realm or not depends on your luck, Yi Qinghan said frankly. What materials? Xinyuan Chenxiao's eyes lit up and he asked excitedly. The materials of the Tao Master's precious pill. I want to refine the Tao Master's precious pill myself. Yi Qinghan said proudly. He still believed in the power of the Tao Master's precious pill that he had refined. With the Tao Master's precious pill that he had refined, the chances of breaking through the Tao Master realm would be increased by 40% to 50%. Even if their qi and blood had withered, there was still a 20% to 30% chance. In addition to his own comprehension, there was still a 50% chance. I will give you a prescription. The more materials, the better. If you can refine 7 or 8 Tao Master's precious pills, you won't die even if you want to. Yi Qinghan said proudly as he flicked his finger. A wisp of divine sense rushed into Xinyuan Chenxiao's sea of consciousness. Xinyuan Chenxiao, Yi Kongqing, and Lu Guyun's faces were flushed. They were trembling and were too excited to speak. Originally, it was dark in front of them and they would fall into the abyss at any time and be smashed to pieces. Now, there was suddenly light in front of them, guiding them to the bright road. How could they not be excited? I will go back to the kingdom of Qingyang. I will be back in 1 month or 2 months. You go back and take care of your qi and blood. After I come back, you can start refining the Tao Master's precious pill. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he turned back to the Crown Prince Palace. He took Emperor Yi away and flew into the sky. In an instant he was hundreds of miles away. Xinyuan Chenxiao, Lu Guyun, and Yi Kongqing felt their blood boiling and their eyes filled with tears. They inexplicably believed in Yi Qinghan's words. If other Tao Insight Realm experts said such words, they would have slapped them. Haha, thanks to Ao Tian's discerning eyes. Otherwise, we can only wait for death. Lu Guyun said excitedly. Yi Kongqing was excited. If he hadn't stood firmly in front of Yi Qinghan half a year ago, how could he have gotten such a good thing today? If you want to get something, you have to pay first. Chapter 143. It had already been a year and a half since Yi Qinghan left the Heavenly Sword sect. However, without the suppression of the King Manor, the Heavenly Sword sect had advanced by leaps and bounds, quickly entering the sights of the kingdom. The kingdom of Azure Sun seemed to have received some news and vigorously supported the Heavenly Sword sect. Currently, the Heavenly Sword sect was incomparably grand. It had expanded 5 times its original size and had close to 10,000 disciples. However, the Heavenly Sword sect only had 300 disciples. However, each of them had a profound cultivation base and were ranked in the top 1,000 of the Heavenly Sword sect. If one wanted to join the Heavenly Sword sect, they had to undergo a strict examination. Relying on connections was obviously impossible. The Heavenly Sword sect's glory was due to Yi Qinghan. Early in the morning, the Heavenly Sword sect's martial practice field had nearly 10,000 disciples practicing their basic sword techniques. Their auras were like rainbows, and their faces were brimming with excitement and glory. The younger generation of the Kingdom of Azure Sun all viewed joining the Heavenly Sword sect as an honor. Those who could walk out of the Heavenly Sword sect and join the Kingdom of Azure Sun's army would be at least a centurion. The annual examination had just ended, and 80% of the youths had been eliminated. Only about 200 disciples had been accepted. The Heavenly Sword sect had snatched the top 5 spots. Even the sect head's peak couldn't compete with them, causing the other 7 peaks to be dissatisfied. Refining peak had already declined. Apart from a few young disciples who were unwilling to leave, bitterly guarding the peak, hoping to regain its glory one day, the various courtyards were overgrown with weeds, and it no longer resembled the main peak of the Heavenly Sword sect. Outside the Heavenly Sword sect, a foolish little fellow was kneeling. He looked to be around 7 or 8 years old, and his clothes were tattered and tattered. He looked like a native child who had walked out of a small ravine. However, his eyes were fixated on the gate of the Heavenly Sword sect, unwilling to leave. Little fellow, hurry up and leave. The Heavenly Sword sect doesn't want trash. You can't even pass the first examination, so what are you doing here? When a young disciple saw that the child was still unwilling to leave after kneeling for 2 days, he couldn't help but take out 2 snow-white steamed buns and give them to him. He reminded him that even if he knelt here until he died, the Heavenly Sword sect wouldn't accept him. Esteemed Lord, I don't have talent, but I can slowly learn. Others can learn sword techniques in 2 hours, but I can learn them in 20 hours, 2 days, or even a month. I'll definitely be able to learn them. Please give me a chance, said the child. My words don't count. With your talent, you can't even open up the most basic sea of qi. What kind of Tao can you cultivate? Hurry up and go down the mountain. The young man finally lost his patience and kept waving his hand as he berated them. The child was still unwilling to leave. He chewed on the steamed bun and lowered his head in silence. Yi Qinghan brought Emperor Yi with him as they sped through the sky. They didn't alert anyone. Originally, they were going to take the alchemy furnace from Weapon Refining Peak and leave quietly. However, when they saw the child's stubborn expression, they couldn't help but watch him curiously. Zhang Xian's silhouette flickered, and he appeared before the entrance of the Heavenly Sword sect. He lowered his head to look at the child, and he realized that his talent was indeed ordinary, making him unsuitable for cultivation. When the young disciple saw Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi, who had his eyes closed, he was stunned. However, he was intimidated by the terrifying aura emanating from Yi Qinghan's body. He quickly bowed and said, "May I know the purpose of Senior's visit?" Yi Qinghan waved his hand, indicating for him to step aside. Then he lifted the child up. The child's pure eyes didn't have any impurities. Apart from his talent, he was quite cute. "Why do you want to cultivate?" Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse as he asked in a deep voice. "My parents and the villagers were killed by bandits. I want to take revenge." "What happens after you take revenge? Do you still want to cultivate?" "Of course I want to cultivate. I want to become strong and kill all the bandits and protect the mortals. Esteemed Lord, can you accept me as your disciple? Do you know that your talent is very poor? It's very likely that your enemy will die of old age before you can open up your sea of qi." Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked, "I can work very hard to learn. I can also chop firewood and cook, catch fish and make soup. Esteemed Lord, please accept me as your disciple. I can serve you. As long as you teach me how to open up my sea of qi, I will definitely succeed." If 1 month isn't enough, I can use 2 months. Hard work can make up for my lack of talent. The child was very serious. He was so persistent that it made one's heart ache. If I help you take revenge, kill your enemy, and give you some gold and a house, will you give up on cultivating? Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. I still want to cultivate and help others. The child replied stubbornly. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly. His eyes flashed as he thought of establishing his own sect. There were many children like him on Al-Fall planet. They were intelligent and had strong wills. If they could be nurtured well, they would be a powerful helper in a decade or so. They would be of great help to Yi Qinghan's revenge in the future. Master? Emperor Yi grabbed Yi Qinghan's clothes. He seemed to be moved by compassion. Follow me. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he held Emperor Ye's hand and walked towards the Heavenly Sword sect. The disciple behind him looked at his back and didn't dare to stop him. The child's eyes lit up. He followed Yi Qinghan and rushed in. He didn't leave his master's side for fear of losing him. Yi Qinghan deliberately increased his speed. The child risked his life to rush up. He was so tired that he was panting. In the end, he used his hands and feet to support himself with his strong will. The Heavenly Sword sect was about 100 meters high from the foot of the mountain. It was extremely steep. Even the disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect would need to spend some effort to climb up. However, the child was able to catch up quickly. There were many wounds on his body. Blood flowed freely, but he didn't cry out in pain. His will was much stronger than his peers. Yi Qinghan smiled. He was very satisfied with this test. On the path of cultivation, talent was important. However, the most important thing was still one's will and one's dedication to the great Tao. Countless years of history had recorded that many peerless experts had average talent. They seemed stupid in the beginning. However, in the end, these people would surpass their predecessors and become experts. There were many who had reached the divine martial realm. What's your name? Yi Qinghan asked when he reached the top of the mountain. Master, my name is Taiwa. The child was excited. He ignored the blood flowing from his hands and said loudly, Don't call me master. I only agreed to bring you along. If I establish a sect in the future and let you be a servant, are you willing? Yi Qinghan probed again. The disappointment on Taiwa's face was obvious. However, he quickly recovered and said, As long as master is willing to teach me how to open up my qi, I'm willing to be a servant. Yi Qinghan nodded and said in a deep voice, Remember the answer you told me today. After cultivating for 1,000 years, don't forget your original intention. From today onwards, I will accept you as an in-name disciple. Whether you can become an official disciple will depend on your luck. Taiwa knelt down respectfully and kowtowed a few times. His head was bleeding. The custom of some places was that the more kowtowed, the more respect one had. It seemed that Taiwa's respect for Yi Qinghan came from the bottom of his heart. Hee, I have a little junior brother now. Come and greet senior sister. Emperor Yi clapped happily. Her eyes trembled, but she still didn't dare to open them. Taiwa kowtowed a few more times to Emperor Yi and obediently called her senior sister. Emperor Yi smiled like a flower. Her small hand trembled, and a few second-grade pills appeared in her hand. She handed them to Taiwa and said gently, Follow senior sister from now on. This is a greeting gift. Taiwa looked at Yi Qinghan timidly. He wanted to reach out to take it, but he didn't dare to. She's your eldest senior sister. She gave it to you. Take it. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the entrance of the Heavenly Sword sect. As soon as he entered, he saw the thousands of disciples on the training field practicing in unison. They were cultivating the basic sword technique of the 9 swords technique. They did have some momentum, but they lacked some essence, energy, and spirit. Only a few people could succeed. With a glance, he did not see any genius that could catch Yi Qinghan's eye. He then walked towards the weapon refining peak. One big and two small, they were very unfamiliar. But their aura far surpassed the powerful elders of the sect. The thousands of disciples were stunned, forgetting to cultivate. The bitter C-stage elders were shocked, looking at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. They fiercely rubbed their eyes, afraid that they had mistaken him for someone else. It's senior brother Yi Qinghan. It was unknown who shouted, but the thousands of people on the training field instantly became excited. They directly surrounded him, their faces full of worship and respect. We pay our respects to senior brother Yi. The disciples all bowed and said in unison. Yi Qinghan's aura was captivating, handsome, and imposing. He suppressed everyone so much that they didn't dare to move. The disciples of the Breaking Sword Peak pay their respects to senior brother. A young expert with a jade-like demeanor took the lead. He led nearly 300 disciples forward and said excitedly. They had joined the sword-breaking peak. How could they not know Yi Qinghan? He was at the early stage of the blood ignition realm. He cut off Ma Rugi's legs with one saber, raised the Duke's residence with one move, and suppressed thousands of soldiers with one move. Who could compete with him? The Kingdom of Azure's Sun not only did not take revenge on the Sky Sword sect, but also supported them. It was all because of this person. Yi Qinghan was their idol. How could they not be excited to see their idol? Yi Qinghan was emotionless. He had no feelings for the sword-breaking peak. This time, he came to the Sky Sword sect mainly for the spirit-refining furnace and the enlightenment lotus in the Iron Tower. Yes, continue to cultivate. I still have things to do, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Senior brother Yi, teach us a move or two. The current senior brother of the sword-breaking peak, Qin Luo, asked excitedly. The moves are in your heart. Why do you need me to teach you? Yi Qinghan said indifferently. He said to Emperor Yi, take Tai Hua and wait for me here. I'm going to get something and will be back soon. Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and went straight to the back mountain of the weapon-refining peak. Everyone in the martial arts practice field forgot about their cultivation. They stared at Renhuang Yi with their eyes wide open. Although Renhuang Yi did not open his eyes, his peerlessly beautiful face was enough to mesmerize all living things. Are you senior brother Ye's younger sister, Miss Mengxi? Chen Luo asked curiously. What nonsense are you talking about? Don't talk nonsense if you don't know. Junior sister Meng, she should only be 7 years old. This fairy is at least 15 years old. She's a perfect match with senior brother Yi. Is there a need to talk about her identity? A disciple who had been in the Sky Sword sect for at least 3 years said proudly. Emperor Yi pursed his lips and did not say anything. Other than Yi Qinghan, he maintained a certain level of vigilance towards everyone else, let alone these people whom he had never met before. Men, what are you all standing there for? Quickly bring a chair for the fairy and some spirit fruits. Lin Hong was now the senior brother of the sword-breaking peak of the Sky Sword sect. His cultivation was close to the 5th star of the Bitter Sea realm and was comparable to an elder. Chapter 144. The thousands of disciples on the martial arts practice field couldn't be bothered to cultivate. They all surrounded Emperor Yi, thinking that he was Yi Qinghan's Dao companion. They all had flattering expressions. Don't come near me. Emperor Yi was vigilant. The birthmark on his palm was restless, and his eyes were about to open. Lin Hong felt the terrifying killing intent on Emperor Ye's body and hurriedly shouted for everyone to retreat. He cupped his fists more than 10 meters away and said, Fairy, don't be nervous. We are all senior brother Ye's junior brothers. We have no ill intentions. Then, a disciple brought over a chair. Lin Hong took it, wrapped it with his quintessential essence, and slowly sent it to Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi sat down and gradually relaxed. He took out a 4th-grade zither from his yin and yang ring and hugged it in his arms. He emitted a faint pressure, preventing anyone from approaching. Only Tai Hua looked at everyone with envy, but he didn't know that his master was much more terrifying than these people. Tai Hua, here's a fruit for you. Emperor Yi casually took out a 4th-grade spirit fruit with golden light flowing around it and threw it to Tai Hua without hesitation. Everyone drooled. Oh my god! A 4th-grade spirit fruit is eaten just like that? Lin Hong's forehead was covered in sweat, and he was instantly speechless. Tai Hua was too young and didn't understand that Emperor Yi casually threw a priceless 4th-grade spirit fruit to him. It was a treasure that could be fought over in the market. After kneeling for a few days, he was definitely hungry. He picked it up and gnawed on it. He felt a wave of comfort all over his body. The impurities in his body were all refined and expelled from his body. It emitted a foul smell that was blown away by the wind. Go take a bath. Emperor Ye's brows moved slightly as he said with a smile. Lin Hong ordered a trusted junior brother to send Tai Hua to take a bath. Everyone in the square was discussing, but they didn't dare to approach Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi gnawed on the red-leafed fruits one after another, causing everyone's heart to ache. Breaking Sword Peak's peak lord, Wang Shufei, immediately rushed down the peak when he heard that Yi Qinghan had returned with Emperor Yi. He laughed loudly and said, "Great-grandson, I heard that you've returned with your granddaughter-in-law. Come, let grandfather take a look." Wang Shufei's speed was very fast. Before Yi Qinghan left, he had secretly thrown a 4th-grade secret technique to him. Now, he was already close to the Grotto Heaven realm. 9 stars of the Bitter Sea. It only took him a few breaths to reach the martial arts practice field from the Broken Sword Peak. In the blink of an eye, he had rushed behind Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi abruptly turned around and pulled the strings with his 5 fingers. The strings of the 4th-grade guqin were almost torn apart. The terrifying sound of the guqin pierced through everything and headed straight for Wang Shufei. The sound of the zither was sharp and contained a murderous aura. It filled the martial arts arena and instantly suppressed Wang Shufei. Wang Shufei felt as if he had been attacked by a supreme expert. He didn't even have time to mobilize his true essence before he was sent flying dozens of meters away. All the blood vessels in his body ruptured and blood flowed out. His head was dizzy and he coughed up blood nonstop. Everyone in the martial arts arena was stunned. Most of the disciples were so frightened by the sound of the zither that their legs went soft and they collapsed to the ground. Their faces were as pale as paper. Lin Hong's heart was beating wildly and his expression was ugly. He felt as if his heart had been shattered by the sound of the zither. He was stunned by Emperor Ye's sudden outburst. Emperor Yi looked harmless and was like the cutest girl next door. But once he exploded, he could cause the sky to crack and the earth to collapse for thousands of miles. Cough cough. Wang Shufei was in a sorry state. He was bleeding from all 7 orifices and his clothes were tattered like a beggar. He crawled up from the ground with difficulty and looked at the little girl in front of him in horror. He kept retreating. When Jian Ao and the other sect masters and peak masters heard that Yi Qinghan had returned, they all came out of seclusion to welcome him. Looking at the disheveled Wang Shufei, they all laughed and were secretly happy. In the past year, the Sundering Sword Peak had been glorious. Every time the best disciple of the Sky Sword sect was taken away by the Sundering Sword Peak, it had already caused dissatisfaction. "Oh, isn't this Brother Wang? A great expert of the 9 stars of the Bitter Sea. You're about to catch up to the Grand Elder, but you've been beaten to such a state." Jian Ao ridiculed. Many disciples couldn't help but laugh, especially the disciples of the Sundering Sword Peak. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If it was someone else who had beaten their master, they would have already turned hostile. But the one who had beaten their master was someone brought back by Yi Qinghan. Moreover, it seemed that their relationship wasn't ordinary. It could only be said that the flood had washed over the Dragon King's temple, and they didn't recognize each other anymore. The corner of Wang Shufei's mouth twitched. He wanted to approach Emperor Yi but didn't dare. And Emperor Yi was even more wary of the crowd. He hurriedly said, "You're not allowed to come near me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Fairy, don't misunderstand. The person you just beat is senior brother Ye's grandfather. Don't misunderstand." Lin Hong hurriedly explained. Emperor Ye's hand trembled. The strength he had used just now was definitely not light. Although there was no killing intent, it was enough to deal with a Bitter Sea stage expert. She clearly didn't expect that he would actually beat up Yi Qinghan's grandfather. "I'm sorry, granduncle, I didn't know it was you." Emperor Ye's face flushed red as he hurriedly apologized. Wang Shufei was completely speechless. This time he had been beaten up unjustly, but the little girl had already apologized. What else could he do? Moreover, she was brought back by Yi Qinghan. What if she really was his granddaughter-in-law? It's okay. This little bit of strength is nothing to me," Wang Shufei said while waving his hand. his mouth was still bleeding. Everyone laughed wildly, especially the experts of the older generation. They felt that this slap to the face was even more satisfying than slapping themselves. At this moment, Yi Qinghan carried the refining divine furnace and flew over from outside the city. Landing on the martial arts arena, he saw that Wang Shufei was covered in blood. Emperor Ye's expression was awkward. He knew that it was definitely Emperor Yi who had acted. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. "My son is too sensitive, please forgive him. These 4th-grade spirit pills are to compensate you." Yi Qinghan casually tossed out the remaining 4th-grade spirit pills, leaving everyone dumbfounded. This is too generous. This injury is too direct. Wang Shufei's fucking luck is too good. If I had known, I would have rushed over first and let this little girl hit me. These spirit pills would have been mine. Jian Ao and the others all thought the same. They secretly felt pity in their hearts as they looked at Wang Shufei with envy and jealousy, drooling over the 4th-grade spirit pills. Wang Shufei's mood immediately improved. He wanted Emperor Yi to hit him a few more times, but he didn't know that Emperor Yi just didn't want to kill him. Otherwise, a strand of zither music would have destroyed his soul. Yi Qinghan acted swiftly. He placed the several tons of refining divine furnace on the ground and directly said, "Jian Ao, call the Sky Sword Sect's Grand Elder over. I want to do business with you." Everyone's expression changed when they saw Yi Qinghan carrying such a large furnace. When Yi Qinghan came to the Sky Sword Sect, he was only at the Qi Si realm. He hadn't even reached the Blood Ignition realm. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. Now, it was impossible to see through his cultivation. But just this move alone was enough to show how powerful he was. I wonder why fellow Taoist Yi is looking for this old man? The Sky Sword Sect's Grand Elder had already come out of seclusion. He woke up the moment Yi Qinghan appeared. He was shocked by Yi Qinghan's aura and immediately flew out when he saw Yi Qinghan looking for him. "Name a price for this refining divine furnace and the divine lotus in the Sky Sword Sect's pagoda. I want them." Yi Qinghan was incomparably domineering. The implication of his words was that no matter how much you name, I'll buy it. Moreover, you have to sell it. The Grand Elder's expression changed. The Sky Sword Sect's pagoda hid a divine lotus of enlightenment. It was a divine item that the founder of the Sky Sword Sect accidentally obtained. It had always been hidden in the pagoda, and no one knew about it. Only the sect master passed it down from generation to generation, and the Grand Elder guarded it. How could Yi Qinghan know? You can buy the refining divine furnace. The Grand Elder didn't know the value of the refining divine furnace. He didn't know that it wasn't just a furnace, but also a treasure that could refine pills. It was a treasure above the 5th grade. Its value was probably more than 5 million middle-grade spirit stones. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said so. As for the treasure in the pagoda, I'm sorry. This is the inheritance treasure of my Sky Sword Sect. It's not for sale. The Grand Elder shook his head and refused. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. If the refining divine furnace could be sold, then why couldn't the enlightenment divine lotus? Ridiculous. I'll give you 1 million middle-grade spirit stones and 5 million low-grade spirit stones. It's enough for you to develop into a 4th-grade sect. Just say it, are you selling or not? Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly as he stared at the Grand Elder. As long as the Grand Elder dared to refuse, he wouldn't be here to buy anything today. He would be here to rob the treasures. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The Sky Sword Sect's reserve was less than 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Qinghan offered 1 million middle-grade spirit stones and 5 million low-grade spirit stones. Was he trying to scare them to death? He could smash everyone in the Sky Sword Sect to death with spirit stones. Sell. I represent the Sky Sword Sect to sell these 2 items. Jian Ao was overjoyed. He didn't even bother to talk about the price. He was afraid that Yi Qinghan would go back on his word, so he directly agreed. Bastard, these are the treasures left behind by the founder. Although the Grand Elder was tempted, protecting the Enlightenment Divine Lotus was his life's mission. This was his mission, his glory. He was about to die, so he obviously wouldn't be moved by money. Martial uncle. The refining divine furnace is also a treasure left behind by the founder. Why are you willing to sell it? Jian was furious. With so many spirit stones, it was enough to pile up hundreds of Grotto Heaven Realm experts. He would be a fool to refuse. The Enlightenment Divine Lotus looked like it was flowing with divine light and was extremely precious. However, the laws it contained were difficult to understand. Just looking at it made one feel pain. A useless Enlightenment Divine Lotus for 1 million middle-grade spirit stones and 5 million low-grade spirit stones. Why not? Yi Qinghan's lips curled up as he looked down at the Grand Elder. His aura surged, suppressing the heavens. He coldly said, I want you to name your price. I'm not asking you what you can sell and what you can't sell. Do you understand? The Grand Elder's breathing stagnated and he took several steps back. He looked at Yi Qinghan's eyes and didn't dare to look directly at him. If I leave this item with you, it will bring disaster to the Sky Sword sect sooner or later. Moreover, it's useless to you. Exchanging it for spirit stones is the best choice. Yi Qinghan was disdainful. This kind of stubborn old man couldn't be raised. The Enlightenment Divine Lotus was a supreme treasure for cultivation. However, one could only use it after reaching the realm of Dao Sovereign. Otherwise, even a Fate Palace realm expert would feel his hair stand on end. It might even affect his Dao heart. For weak cultivators, the Enlightenment Divine Lotus was a disaster, not a blessing. The Grand Elder smiled bitterly. He also understood that Yi Qinghan was right. He had guarded the Enlightenment Divine Lotus for decades, but he didn't dare to take a look at it. If he left it in the sect, he would be on tenterhooks. He was afraid that the experts would come to fight for it. In the end, the sect would be destroyed. Chapter 145. Yi Qinghan forcefully suppressed the Grand Elder. His goal in coming to the Azure Sun Kingdom was the smelting divine furnace and the Enlightenment Lotus. He had to take whatever he fancied. Jian strongly requested to sell the Enlightenment Lotus and the smelting divine furnace. How could the other peak lords refuse when they heard the huge number? As for Wang Shufei, he definitely hoped that Yi Qinghan could get the treasures he wanted. Naturally, he agreed wholeheartedly. The Grand Elder was alone and had some selfish thoughts. He finally nodded in agreement. I'll go get the Enlightenment Lotus. The parrot was lying on Yi Qinghan's shoulder. It had been weak all this time. When it heard that it could get the Enlightenment Lotus, it immediately became excited and rushed toward the iron tower at the back of the mountain. Yi Qinghan was afraid that the parrot would destroy the Enlightenment Lotus. He grabbed Emperor Yi and Tai Hua and rushed over. The Grand Elder and the other peak lords looked at each other and followed. The mountains at the back of the mountain were tall and straight. The trees reached the clouds. An iron tower stood in the middle of the mountain, surrounded by trees and mountains. It was sealed by a faintly discernible barrier. If one didn't see it with their own eyes, it would be hard to notice that there was an iron tower here. Yi Qinghan reached out and broke the defensive barrier. The iron tower trembled for a moment before calming down. The parrot wanted to rush in first, but Yi Qinghan grabbed it. The peak lords were all rejected by the Grand Elder. This was the Sky Sword sect's forbidden area. Apart from the sect master and the Grand Elder, no one could enter. However, Yi Qinghan was destined to be an exception. If he wanted to fight his way in, no one here could stop him. Jian and Yi Qinghan followed the Grand Elder in. Emperor Yi held Tai Hua's shoulder and followed in. The ancient tower was filled with an ancient aura. It had 1,000 years of history, yet it still stood proudly. It could only be said that the Sky Sword sect's luck was good. The simple iron tower had a total of 4 floors. Hidden below were the powerful secret arts of the Heavenly Sword sect. But in Yi Qinghan's eyes, they were all trash. Even looking at them was a waste of time. The second floor was where the spirit crystals were stored. There were only 800 to 900 pieces in total, and they were all low-grade ones. The third floor was where the Grand Supreme Elder lived. He cultivated in seclusion here. On the 4th floor, the thick pressure of the Great Path was confined within the iron tower. One could clearly feel it on the 3rd floor. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He could feel the dark and water elements within his body becoming restless. It was as if he had smelled an ancient divine medicine. The zither birthmark in Emperor Ye's palm emitted a dazzling light that intimidated the ancient pagoda. The majestic aura made it difficult for Yi Qinghan to breathe, let alone Jian Ao and the others. Taiwan knelt on the ground from the pressure and looked at Emperor Yi in horror. Take Taiwan and leave first. I will give you the spirit crystals when I come out. Yi Qinghan brought Emperor Yi directly to the 4th floor. There was still a barrier seal above the 4th floor. Yi Qinghan first set up an even stronger barrier outside, sealing half of the iron tower. Then he shattered the barrier inside. The majestic aura of the Great Path covered the heavens and the earth, enveloping Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi had the zither immortal crimson demon body and the protection of the divine zither. Not only was he not affected, but he was also greedily comprehending the Great Path's origin mysteries. Yi Qinghan had the soul of a great martial saint and could already comprehend the Great Path. At this moment, he took a deep breath and pushed open the door to the 4th floor. Instantly, divine light shot out in all directions. The light waves flowed beautifully. It was filled with the origin laws of the Great Path, helping people to comprehend the Great Path and cultivate. It was definitely a treasure that cultivators of the great martial saint realm and above could only dream of. It has 1,000 years of history. It is indeed extraordinary. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. What a treasure! No wonder I could still sense it even though it was sealed by 2 barriers. How good would it be if I could eat a leaf? The parrot was salivating and drooling. If it was not held in Yi Qinghan's hand, it would have already pounced on it. Don't even think about the divine lotus of enlightenment. Otherwise, I will roast and eat you. Yi Qinghan warned in a deep voice. Cough cough. I will just take a look. Don't be nervous. I know that the divine lotus of enlightenment is one and cannot be damaged. Otherwise, if the Great Path is not complete, it will seriously affect the power of the Great Path. The parrot laughed and said. The dense divinity spread outwards, and the divine lotus revealed 4 colors. Each color had a halo. The smallest halo was purple, the second was blue, the third was green, and the outermost was red. It continuously spread outwards as if it wanted to sprout wings and ascend to immortality, breaking through the sky and leaving. Yi Qinghan was excited. This was the 9-colored divine lotus. When all 9 halos appeared, it was an emperor-level divine item. However, this was only 4 colors. It would take many years to evolve to 9 colors. I can feel the Great Path just by smelling it. It can become an emperor-level divine item and suppress the heavenly path with a wave of its hand. Once it reaches the 9th grade, what kind of existence will it be? The parrot was excited as it clicked its tongue. Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged on the ground and used this opportunity to comprehend the mysteries of the water element and the dark element. Now that he had the divine lotus of enlightenment, he could understand the mysteries of the 2 elements even more clearly. He could use them naturally and easily. The little person cultivated these 2 elements in his sea of consciousness, striving to reach the small success realm in a short period of time. He could injure people invisibly, especially the water element. If he cultivated it to the large success realm, as long as he could sense it with his divine sense from 1,000 miles away, he could instantly drain the water element from the enemy's body. The most important component of a person was water. Without the water element, even a god would die. The divine zither in Emperor Ye's palm rushed out of his body. The divine zither's shadow in his eye sockets actually dispersed on its own. Emperor Yi looked at the room full of colored glaze. His eyes widened. He wanted nothing more than to imprint the whole world in his mind. This was the first time he saw the outside world. Emperor Yi was so excited that tears flowed freely. He looked through the enchantment at the endless universe, at the mountains and rivers. He greedily took in every breath. I can finally see. The world is so beautiful. I want to see it forever. Emperor Yi was incomparably excited. Yo, little girl's eyes are so beautiful. The parrot looked at Emperor Ye's bright eyes. It was attracted by those eyes that could influence all things. It couldn't help but praise. Hee, this is what a lowly bird looks like. So white, so fat, so ugly. Emperor Yi laughed foolishly. He then fixed his gaze on Yi Qinghan's vigorous face. Half of his face was like jade, and his hair hung down. He was like a man who had walked out of a painting. His temperament was unparalleled in both ancient and modern times. She looked at him with infatuation, not even paying attention to the Enlightenment divine lotus. The parrot curled its lips and said disdainfully, "We are different species. This divine bird doesn't need your approval. I am the most handsome parrot in the world of parrots." The room became so silent that even the sound of breathing could be heard. After a long time, Emperor Yi stared at himself until he was embarrassed. His face flushed red. He turned to look at the Enlightenment divine lotus. Wisps of the great Tao were forcibly absorbed into his sea of consciousness. He could use it with a stretch of his hand. Even if it was just a prototype, it was enough to shock anyone. Reincarnation, light, order, yin and yang, Emperor Yi played the zither. The sound of the zither was filled with these great Tao laws and profound essence origins. Although it was very vague, it made Yi Qinghan's body tremble. His understanding of the two elements instantly broke through the original shackles. The water element true meaning had reached the peak of minor completion. It was enough to kill people and defend oneself. Yi Qinghan's brows twitched. After stabilizing the water element true meaning, he once again cultivated the dark element. His body emitted a dark light, and his aura was so sharp and oppressive that it made it difficult for others to breathe. The parrot directly fled to Emperor Ye's shoulder. Outside the martial stage, a group of people was anxiously waiting. The Grand Elder, the various main peak masters, and Jian Ao were all waiting under the Iron Tower. They were trembling from the waves of pressure coming from inside. Too strong. Martial uncle, what is Yi Qinghan's cultivation realm? Jian Ao's face was pale. His Tao heart trembled as he asked in a deep voice. I don't know. I can't tell. It's a very vague realm. However, it's not lower than the first step of the Grotto Heaven realm. It's very likely that he has already surpassed this old man. The Grand Elder exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He was also shocked by Yi Qinghan's speed of growth. He didn't know how to describe Yi Qinghan. Yu Shiqia's face was flushed red, and her chest was trembling. She said excitedly, I remember that when he left the Sky Sword sect, he was only at the Blood Ignition realm. In the blink of an eye, in just 2 years, he actually reached the Grotto Heaven realm. It really makes me feel ashamed. Of course. Don't you see whose grandson he is? Wang Shufei said proudly. Shameless. Back then, who was the one who didn't dare to offend the Duke Manor and expelled his own daughter and son-in-law from the Shattering Sword Peak? Yu Shiqia sneered. She was extremely disgusted with Wang Shufei. Wang Shufei's expression changed. He was extremely angry, but he had nothing to say. In the past, he and Yu Shiqia were very close, but because of that matter, they had a disagreement. Yu Shiqia wanted to be strong and make the decision for the Wang clan and Yi Qin, but Wang Shufei wanted to expel the two of them from the sect and let them run for their lives. From then on, the two of them became strangers and treated each other like enemies. All right, let's not quarrel anymore. This matter has already passed for so many years. If anyone is wrong, then it's this old man's fault. I shouldn't have admitted defeat. If Yi Qinghan holds a grudge, then let him kill me. In any case, this old man only has a few years left to live. The Grand Elder's aura sank as he coldly shouted. In the end, the Grand Elder still had some prestige. The Peak Lords immediately shut their mouths and quietly waited for Yi Qinghan to come down. Half a day later, Yi Qinghan suddenly opened his eyes. His temperament had changed greatly. He had become even more dignified and ethereal, like an immortal or a god. His appearance was dignified, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. His clothes fluttered, and his eyes were deep and enchanting. The parrot and Emperor Yi were stunned. Master is so handsome. Uncle Master is so handsome. I can see your face now. Emperor Yi excitedly clapped his hands. Yi Qinghan was also delighted. He couldn't help but look at the petal of enlightenment. He secretly thought, I wonder if the divine zither will continue to seal her eyes after I put away the petal of enlightenment? My son, has the divine zither's shadow completely left your eyes? Yi Qinghan didn't want to disappoint Emperor Yi, so he asked in a low voice. I don't know. I can't sense it anymore. Master, do you think my eyes will still be sealed after I leave this iron tower? Emperor Yi sadly said, I really like the feeling of light. I really like being able to see the world. Yi Qinghan bitterly smiled. He really couldn't guarantee this. Once the petal of enlightenment was put away, the divine zither's shadow would still seal her eyes. He couldn't just keep the petal of enlightenment hanging in front of her, could he? Chapter 146. Inside the Iron Tower, the atmosphere was tense to the extreme. Yi Qinghan slowly put away the enlightenment godly lotus. He was afraid that if he moved too quickly, it would cause the divine Guqin to fluctuate and hurt Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi was even more nervous. He stared at Yi Qinghan, afraid that this would be the last time he saw him. The aura of the great Tao in the Iron Tower gradually disappeared. Yi Qinghan put the enlightenment godly lotus into his yin and yang ring and stared at Emperor Ye's eyes. Emperor Ye's eyes gradually dimmed. As expected, the divine Guqin's shadow slowly sealed Emperor Ye's eyes. Darkness once again descended on Emperor Ye's eyes. Sigh, what a pity. Such beautiful eyes. The parrot said with sincere regret. Emperor Yi smiled, but his smile was more heartbreaking than crying. He pretended to be strong and said, It's okay. The divine Guqin's seal will be broken sooner or later. You don't have to worry. Yi Qinghan shook his head and held Emperor Ye's hand. He could feel her panic and helplessness. He couldn't help but sigh. This seal wouldn't be so easy to break. The two of them went down the Iron Tower. Jian Ao was very excited. He couldn't wait to get 1,000,000 mid-grade and low-grade spirit crystals. In his eyes, the refining divine furnace and enlightenment godly lotus were useless. However, 5,000,000 low-grade spirit crystals was a huge sum. 1,000,000 mid-grade spirit crystals was an incalculable amount of wealth. It could help the Sky Sword sect soar into the sky and become a 3rd-grade or even 4th-grade sect. Qinghan, those spirit crystals? Jian Ao rubbed his palms and asked with a smile. How the spirit crystals are distributed is your Sky Sword sect's matter. I won't interfere. Yi Qinghan casually threw out 6 yin and yang rings. They were all filled with spirit crystals. Quick, take a look. Is the number right? Everyone took the yin and yang rings and their eyes widened. They had never seen such good spirit crystals in their lives. Even low-grade spirit crystals were 10 times better than the spirit crystals they had in reserve, not to mention mid-grade spirit crystals. Seeing the countless spiritual crystals, the great Supreme Elder was in a good mood. He no longer cared about the Enlightenment Lotus and his mission. Yi Qinghan coldly led Emperor Yi and Tai Hua to the martial arts practice field. The disciples were still waiting with excited expressions, hoping to receive some guidance from Yi Qinghan. However, Yi Qinghan was not interested in giving them pointers. Instead, he dripped a drop of blood essence into the smelting divine furnace. The smelting divine furnace immediately shrank and entered Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. The smelting divine furnace's effects were fully revealed. It was indeed at the middle of the 5th grade. It could be used to refine pills and weapons. It could definitely be considered a treasure. After Yi Qinghan finished tidying up his affairs, he lifted his head to look at the training grounds. His gaze swept across the area and landed on Lin Hong. In a low voice, he asked, "What's your name?" Junior brother Lin Hong greets senior brother. Lin Hong cupped his fists excitedly. "I'm not your senior brother." Yi Qinghan frowned and said coldly. Lin Hong stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to do. Jian Ao and the others also rushed back to the training grounds and saw everything. They did not expect Yi Qinghan to be so cold, insisting on drawing a clear line with the Sky Sword sect. They could not help but smile bitterly. "I want to establish a sect. Lin Hong, are you interested in joining? Be the eldest senior brother and help me manage it," Yi Qinghan said. Lin Hong's eyes lit up. Yi Qinghan wanted to establish a sect. It would probably be a 3rd-grade sect at the very least. It might even be a 4th-grade sect. Moreover, Yi Qinghan had always been his idol. Even if Yi Qinghan did not admit that he was a member of the Sky Sword sect, if something happened to the Sky Sword sect, Yi Qinghan would definitely help. Therefore, if he followed Yi Qinghan, it would not be considered betraying the Sky Sword sect. However, Lin Hong still looked at his master, Jian Ao. After all, he was the head disciple of the Sky Sword sect. Jian Ao, sell your disciple to me. You pay the price. Jian Ao and the others, fuck, how rich is he? Buying the smelting divine furnace and enlightenment lotus is one thing, but now he wants to buy his own disciple? How willful is he? The elders of the Sky Sword sect and the Peak Master were speechless. Even Wang Shufei felt that Yi Qinghan was a little willful. He had too much money, so he had nothing to do with it. What they didn't know was that Yi Qinghan was also the one who had bought Ren Huangyi. Yi Qinghan's actions also exposed his mentality. In this world, there was nothing that spirit crystals could not solve. 100,000 low-grade spirit crystals? Jian Ao was going all out for spirit crystals. Since Yi Qinghan wanted to buy, then he would sell. However, he was afraid that he would anger Yi Qinghan by opening his mouth too much. Hence, he called out 100,000 low-grade spirit crystals. 100,000 low-grade spirit crystals. For Jian Ao, if he did not have the 5 million low-grade spirit crystals and 1 million mid-grade spirit crystals, it would be a huge sum. It was enough to buy the Sky Sword sect. Hence, even he felt that the price was high. However, for Yi Qinghan, this price was too high. Lin Hong had never seen so many spirit crystals before and thought that Jian Ao valued him very much, which was why he had offered such a high price. Yi Qinghan, on the other hand, thought that Jian Ao didn't recognize talent and didn't appreciate it. That was why he had offered such a high price. Yi Qinghan was too lazy to say more. He casually threw out a universe ring. In the future, you are no longer a member of the Sky Sword sect. You are mine. Your heart must be on my side, understand? Yi Qinghan looked at Lin Hong and said in a deep voice. Yes. Then how should I address you? Lin Hong smiled bitterly. If he could not call him senior brother, then should he call him master? You can be considered half of my unofficial disciple. If I am not satisfied with your performance, I can kick you out of the sect at any time. Yi Qinghan was extremely cold. He threw down 1 million low-grade spirit crystals to buy Lin Hong. If he was not satisfied, then he would kick him out of the sect. How rich and willful was he? Good grandson, it is not easy for you to come back. Why don't you have a good chat with your grandfather? How is your mother? How is Mengshi? Wang Shufei smiled embarrassedly. He seemed to be concerned about Wang Shi and Yi Mingxi. However, he was telling everyone that regardless of whether Yi Qinghan was a member of the Sky Sword sect, he was still his grandson. This relationship could not be denied. Everything is fine. Chen Xue is also fine. No need to worry. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and looked at Yu Shijie. He took out another universe ring and said coldly, there are 1 million low-grade spirit crystals in this ring. Take it as my purchase of Jian Chenxue. Yu Shijie took the universe ring. Wang Shufei looked at Yi Qinghan with drooling eyes. He wanted to snatch a few universe rings. He wanted some spirit crystals, but he felt embarrassed. After all, the person in front of him was his own blood, his own grandson. Yi Qinghan smiled. He did not have much feelings for this cheap grandfather. However, he was Meng Shi's grandfather after all. He could not treat him badly. Moreover, he did not lack low-grade spirit crystals. Last time, he had obtained more than 100 million low-grade spirit crystals from the spirit crystal mine in the Demon Valley continent. Therefore, he threw out another 2 universe rings. Wang Shufei took the universe rings and checked them with his divine sense. He was immediately overjoyed. He quickly put away the universe rings and laughed, "How can I let my grandson spend so much money?" Yi Qinghan sneered in his heart, but he still nodded on the surface. Only then did the crowd realize how capricious Yi Qinghan was. He spent 2 million low-grade spirit crystals to buy 2 people. Many disciples' eyes lit up. They thought to themselves, if only my idol bought me. Even 100 low-grade spirit crystals would be good. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan was not interested in them. He waved his hand and the god-slaying eagle appeared on the training field. The pressure of a Fate Palace-level beast enveloped the Sky Sword sect. The great elder and others were so shocked that they took a few steps back. Many people were so scared that they wet their pants. Back to Lulon. He did not give them any chance to speak. He poured out his vital essence and wrapped them up. They flew up to the sky and disappeared in the sky above the Sky Sword sect. Lin Hong stood on the eagle's back. His blood was boiling and he wished he could spread his wings and fly. He looked at Yi Qinghan's strong back with his black hair fluttering in the wind. His eyes were full of awe. The Fate Palace level god-slaying eagle was very fast. It could fly more than 3,000 miles in 2 hours. In half a day, it was out of the sphere of influence of the kingdom of Qingyang. After flying for several days, it finally arrived at the sphere of influence of Lulon. Xianyuan Qianshao and the others spent almost all their wealth to buy countless spiritual medicines and treasures to replenish their vital essence and blood. They also bought all the materials for the Tao Master Supreme Pellet. They waited quietly for Yi Qinghan's return. How long has brother Yi Qinghan been away from Lulon? Xianyuan Qianshao counted the days with his fingers. He could not wait for Yi Qinghan to come back. He'll be back soon. It's been half a month. Lu Guyun was anxious and excited. He was the closest to the end of his life. He only had 1 or 2 years left. Yi Kongqing was fine. After all, he still had 10 years left. He had a better chance than Xianyuan Qianshao and Lu Guyun. Swish. A figure covered the sky and the sun. The eagle's wings covered the sun. The whole imperial capital was in darkness. Screech. A strong sound penetrated the sky and the earth. It was deafening. Ha, brother Yi is back. The 3 of them flew to the sky and went out to welcome him personally. The wind and clouds between heaven and earth suddenly changed. The Milky Way rolled backward and the sky fluctuated. The god-slaying eagle descended and swiftly returned to Yi Qinghan's azure dragon arm. Yi Qinghan's aura was overwhelming. He looked at the 3 of them calmly and asked, "Your vitality is recovering well. Have you bought all the materials?" "Yes, we have. We've bought all of them. We're just waiting for you to make a move." The 3 of them said in unison, "Well, give me the materials." Reaching out to take the materials, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, "I'll make some pills in the next few days. You spread the news that the 3 of you will establish a sect together. The name of the sect is Crazy Sect. We're recruiting disciples. There are 3 tests in total. Anyone who passes any of the tests can join the Crazy Sect." "You want to establish a sect?" the 3 of them asked in surprise. "It's not me. It's you. The 3 of you are the Grand Elders. The sect leader has not been decided yet. The chief disciple is Lin Hong. The eldest senior sister is Emperor Yi. There are 3 tests. The first test is willpower. You must have a strong willpower. You must be able to stay awake for half an hour under Emperor Ye's Guqin and not kneel under the pressure of the god-slaying eagle. For the second test, you must be at least a 4th-grade talent. For the third test, you must satisfy all 3 of you." Yi Qinghan was ready to be a hands-off boss. He handed over all the messy matters to the 3 of them while he cultivated in peace. The 3 of them looked at each other. The 3 tests that Yi Qinghan mentioned seemed simple. As long as one passed any of the tests, they could enter the Crazy Sect. In fact, it was extremely strict. There were probably only a few people who could pass the test on the entire Owlfall planet. "My son, cooperate with them. Remember, don't be soft-hearted. I want people with strong willpower," Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Emperor Yi nodded. He pointed to the parrot and said, "Leave the parrot to me. With it, I don't have to worry about others getting close to me." Yi Qinghan coldly warned the parrot, causing its feathers to stand on end. It immediately jumped onto Emperor Ye's shoulder and swore solemnly that it wouldn't let Emperor Yi lose a single strand of hair. Chapter 147. A storm was brewing on Owlfall planet. The 3 Fate Palace powerhouses suddenly announced the establishment of the Insane School and were recruiting disciples. Anyone who passed any of the 3 tests would be able to join the Insane School. The test was very fair, from the commoners to the nobles. There was no distinction between nobles and nobles. The commoners who wanted to cultivate were excited. In the past, they wanted to cultivate, but ordinary sects would not accept them. If one wanted to cultivate, they had to first pave the way with money. Without money, it was useless. Now, the insane sect was a sect jointly built by the 3 fate palaces. It was bound to be a top 4th grade sect. Anyone who could join would soar to the sky. Willpower, talent, and smooth people. Empires, kingdoms, and families were all looking for talents. They offered money and effort, hoping that a disciple of the insane sect would appear in their forces. As long as the commoners reported that they wanted to participate in the insane sect's test, the governor's office would pay for their travel and meals. If they passed the test, they should still be grateful. As the saying went, when one person ascended, all the chickens and dogs would follow. The city was glorious. Geniuses came from all directions. Powerful families even sent thousands of disciples, hoping that one of them could join the insane sect. "Father, I will work hard and join the insane sect." On the bumpy mountain road, a child of 6 or 7 years old said seriously to a middle-aged man, "But as long as you can join the insane sect, your ancestors won't have to be hunters in the future. They won't have to struggle." The middle-aged man was covered in scars. It seemed that he had experienced countless battles and had an unusually strong mind. There were hundreds of people like this on almost every road. They helped each other and rushed to the capital of the Lulan Empire. In a small town in Qingzhou, there was an ordinary family of 5. They had enough to eat and wear, but they worked hard day and night. The parents were filial to the elders and doted on the younger generation. The children were sensible. They were a harmonious family that everyone in the town envied. Lin Wutian, 12 years old, was the youngest child in the family. He was almost obsessed with cultivation. Every day, he would practice with the wooden sword he carved. Sometimes, he would stand for a whole day with the wooden sword in his arms. He looked a little silly and was laughed at by his peers in the town. They thought that he was daydreaming about becoming a master who could fly. At this moment, Lin Wutian stood under an old tree, holding the sword with both hands. He was motionless. His handsome face was full of determination. His black hair swayed in the wind, and his simple hemp clothes fluttered. He looked very lively. "Lin Wutian, you idiot, you still want to cultivate. Can your lousy sword cut through my fist?" A sturdy young man and 7 or 8 other children surrounded Lin Wutian. They saw Lin Wutian holding his sword and repeating the same action. Although Lin Wutian's face was young and tender, he looked resolute and serious at the moment. He didn't care about what others were saying. He had almost integrated his heart into the wooden sword. Every thrust of his sword could drive the spiritual energy in the air, and even a wisp of sword intent. However, he hadn't opened his qi and didn't know how to open it. Therefore, he couldn't discover his own ability. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Lin Wutian brandished his wooden sword. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. His movements were light and elegant. He looked powerless, but in fact he was swift and fierce. What an idiot! I don't know if he can kill a rabbit with this lousy sword every day. Lin Xian and Lin Jiuqiao were the leaders of the children in Lin Town. They had nothing to do all day, so they took pleasure in bullying Lin Wutian. However, Lin Wutian didn't want to have a conflict with them. Unless they angered him, he would glare at them with a pair of cold eyes. These people didn't dare to push him too far. Lin Wutian's glare was too scary. It was like a sharp sword that could pierce through people's souls. "Lin Wutian, if you want to cultivate so much, why don't you participate in the crazy sect's disciple assessment? I heard that it's a 4th-ranked sect jointly established by 3 supreme masters. Moreover, it doesn't require any assessment fees. You can even apply for a travel fee to Lulan if you go to the Great Forest City's mayor's office," a young man in brocade clothes said with disdain. Lin Wutian's aura changed. He withdrew his sword and turned to look at the young man in brocade clothes. He was Lin Jiuqiao, the mayor's son. He was very well informed. "Haha, you don't really want to go, do you? I'm just teasing you, fool. The assessment of the crazy sect is very abnormal. I heard that 1 in 10,000 geniuses is very lucky. The first assessment is the willpower assessment. I heard that you have to face the coercion of a 4th-ranked Fate Palace demon beast, which can crush a supreme being of the bitter sea stage to death. With your strength, You'll probably wet your pants when you see the demon beast, right? Lin Jiuchao sneered. Hee, I also heard that the second assessment requires talents above 4th ranked. My god, 4th ranked means that you're the number 1 genius of Owl Fall Star. How is this an assessment? It's clearly torture. Lin Xian looked at Lin Wutian with disdain. He felt that Lin Wutian had absolutely no chance. Lin Wutian clenched his wooden sword, left the crowd, and went straight home. Father, I want to participate in the assessment of the crazy sect. Lin Wutian said firmly. Nonsense. It's fine if you play with your wooden sword, but now you have to go to a place tens of thousands of miles away to participate in the assessment. What if something happens to you on the way? Besides, you'll be 13 years old soon. It's time to learn how to support your family, get married, and have children. Don't daydream. Cultivation is a fleeting thing. How can ordinary people like us have a chance? Lin Wutian's father said in a deep voice. My ambition is to cultivate. Father, I'm unfilial. When I join the crazy sect, I'll come back in brocade clothes. I'm not a rich second generation, but I can be a rich first generation. I'm not a cultivator second generation, but I can be a first generation cultivator. Who says that ordinary families can't produce supreme cultivators? Lin Wutian rushed out of the house with his wooden sword, not giving his father a chance to speak. He rushed out of the town in a few flashes and disappeared at the end of the street. There were at least 20 teenagers like Lin Wutian. Some were supported by their parents, some were rebellious and went alone. They either soared to the sky or died miserably on the road. They didn't even reach the place of the assessment. Lu Outyin came out of seclusion. His breath became terrifying. At first glance, it was as if he could suck away the soul at any time. Even Lu Guyun and the others felt the pressure doubled when they looked at him. Looking at the countless people coming to the Imperial Square, some of them even set up camp outside the city. Some of them even slept directly on the road. They gritted their teeth and persevered in such a cold weather. Lu Outyin couldn't help but frown. There were too many people coming in at the same time. There were not enough inns for them to stay in. More than 90% of the people had to bring their own tents to stay outside. Half of them didn't even have a tent. Several of them had already frozen to death. Come, pass my order. Take out the military tents reserved by the Empire and ask the Minister of Armaments to send some quilts. Don't let me know that someone has frozen to death in the city. Lu Outyen's order was quickly carried out. The Crown Prince's reputation of cherishing talents won the admiration of most people. They were full of reverence for him. In the future, Lu Outyen would also gain the loyalty of these people. The 3 experts sat cross-legged on the assessment platform. Emperor Yi sat with his zither while the parrot squatted on Emperor Ye's shoulder. It attracted the attention of the crowd. They didn't know what kind of identity she had to be on equal footing with the 3 supreme experts. Xianyuan Chenshao and the others were also respectful to her. The first assessment will be personally assessed by the chief female disciple of the insane sect, Emperor Yi. Anyone who can withstand 10% of her attack for half an hour will pass the assessment. If you can't pass the assessment, you can still participate in the second assessment. If you still can't pass the second assessment, the 3 of us will decide whether you can join the insane sect based on the comprehensive assessment. Lu Guyun slowly stood up. The aura of a supreme expert was full of vicissitudes and decay. The crowd didn't dare to make any noise. What? A little girl is going to assess us? She only used 10% of her power for half an hour. I'm sure I can pass this assessment. It seems that the insane sect is not very strict in accepting disciples. Everyone nodded one after another, especially some of the hedonistic disciples of the great clans and nobles. They didn't know what was good for them, and they looked at Emperor Yi with a covetous expression. They discovered that her eyes were closed the entire time, and her fair face was sparkling and translucent under the rays of the sun. A bunch of idiots. I'll spit fire at you until your face blossoms. The parrot said disdainfully. Those who had such an expression or said such words were basically sentenced to death because they were too stupid. How could a person who could sit side by side with the 3 supreme experts be simple? Didn't they see Lu Outyen standing obediently at the side? Shenyuan Chenshao looked at the endless heads and turned to Emperor Yi. He asked, Fairy Emperor Yi, how many people are you going to assess at one time? Emperor Ye's Zither Dao secret technique was best at dealing with groups. There was no difference between one person and two people. It was best to deal with hundreds of people at the same time without worrying about wasting spiritual power and divine sense. She said softly, 300 people in one assessment units. Now line up in a square. 300 people in a square, 100 in a horizontal line and 30 in a vertical line. Don't make a ruckus. Otherwise, you'll be expelled from the square and won't be able to join the insane sect. Xinyuan Qinshan said in a deep voice. A supreme expert was personally maintaining order. Who would dare to make a move? The disciples of the imperial Wang family didn't dare to say much. However, it was easy for them to line up in the first square. Some of the smarter ones rushed to the second and third groups. They did not understand what Renhuang Ye's test was, so they sent people to test the waters. These people were the smartest and the most cautious. Xinyuan Qinshan and the others saw these smart people and remembered them in their hearts. They had a photographic memory. Later on, they would get a certain number of points in the comprehensive assessment. Almost all of the people in the first square were from the prominent families and the imperial families. They looked dignified and confident, which made others envious. However, some people raised the corner of their mouth and showed a disdainful mockery. The first square, enter the center of the square and wait for the assessment. Emperor Yi stood up and walked to the square with his zither. The colorful glazed princess dress danced in the wind. She looked like a flawless goddess from the divine realm. However, her eyes were still closed, which made people feel sorry for her. However, they didn't know that her eyes were the eyes of the Grim Reaper. One look would make the road ahead become the road of reincarnation. As long as you can stay awake for the time it takes to burn a stick of incense under my zither music, you'll pass. This is also called the willpower assessment. It's not too difficult, but it's not easy either. I'll only use 1/10 of my strength, so everyone still has a chance. Haha, we'll soon be fellow disciples of the same sect. Junior sister, you have to show mercy. A hedonistic young master who didn't know the difference between life and death said arrogantly. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, Emperor Ye's 5 fingers plucked a zither string. The sound of the zither transformed into a sharp blade that pierced through the void and directly smashed into his chest. Chapter 148. Pooed at the body of the playboy was thrown out of the crowd, spurting out a mouthful of blood. Blood flowed from his chest, his body was covered in blood, and he fainted. I am not your junior sister, nor your senior sister. You have already been eliminated. Emperor Yi was cold and indifferent, wanting to establish his prestige. He had almost killed the other party in one move, and this was under the circumstances that she was soft-hearted. Otherwise, this playboy would not be able to be a playboy anymore. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, looking at Emperor Ye's flawless face. Their bodies trembled, and they directly lowered their heads. The experts of the bitter sea stage, although they were playboys, and their cultivation was mostly accumulated with spirit crystals and pills, but they could still be considered as a figure of the younger generation. But they could not even withstand a single move, and were almost killed. What right did they have to speak nonsense? At this moment, no one dared to speak nonsense. The princes of the imperial family looked at Emperor Yi, as if they were looking at the emperor sitting in the main hall. Their bodies were slightly bowed, and they did not dare to make the slightest movement. They were afraid that the emperor's thunderous rage would send them to hell. The aristocratic family behind the young man was furious, but did not dare to be impudent. They could only dejectedly take the young man out of the square. Is everyone ready? Emperor Ye's voice was like the sound of nature. Under the rolling of his true yuan, it resounded throughout the square. Ready? The aristocratic family and the imperial family no longer dared to be arrogant, and replied in unison. Sit down, I'll play a song for you. When that Emperor Yi was the first to sit down, the ancient zither resting on his knees. His 10 fingers stroked the zither, and the beautiful sound turned into a hypnotic song, lingering in the ears. The 7-colored divine light completely enveloped Emperor Yi and the people of the square group, like a boundary, isolating the sound. The people outside could only see the person playing the zither, but could not hear the music. The eyes of everyone within the boundary lit up for a moment, and then immediately dimmed. It was as if they had returned to their childhood, listening to a lullaby in their mother's cradle. Without any defense, they gradually lost themselves in the dream. The melody became more and more pleasant to listen to and more enchanting. Everyone's sea of consciousness was suffused with a dark red color, which made them feel dizzy. In the beginning, there were still some people with strong willpower. But in less than 10 breaths of time, they couldn't hold on any longer. Following the sound of the zither, they fell into a deep sleep. After half an incense stick of time, the 299 youths all fell to the ground, snoring loudly. The people in the outside world could not hear anything. They could only stare blankly as the crowd unknowingly fell asleep. They could not help but be shocked. 300 people, other than the first unlucky debauchee who was half dead from one strike and was directly eliminated, the remaining 200 or so youths were all at the bitter sea stage. Yet they could not even block the sound of the little girl's zither. The other party had only used a tenth of his strength. If he had used his full strength, he probably wouldn't have been able to withstand it for even a breath. When everyone looked at Emperor Yi again, other than reverence, there was no other desire in their eyes. Now, everyone understood that the first trial was the most terrifying. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. The parrot curled its lips and said disdainfully, "Don't waste your mental strength. This group of trash is all asleep." Emperor Yi pressed his hands on the zither strings. The sound of the zither came to an abrupt end. He slowly stood up and the enchantment dispersed. Everyone could clearly see that the people on the ground were in a deep sleep. The corners of their mouths revealed a blissful smile. Cough cough, the first trial, all of you are eliminated. Xianyuan Chenxiao's voice woke up the people who were in the middle of the assessment. They opened their eyes in confusion. When they heard that they were eliminated, their faces were filled with unwillingness. They didn't even understand what had happened and they were eliminated. If anyone is confident that their talent can surpass the 3rd or 4th grade, you can come to me for the talent assessment. If your talent has already been assessed and you haven't even passed the 3rd grade, you can disperse. Don't waste everyone's time. Xianyuan Chenxiao took out a fist-sized talent stone. It was used to assess talent. There were a total of 9 round lines on the stone. If one could activate a round line, it represented a 1st grade talent. If the 4th round line was activated, it meant that the person had a 4th grade talent. So far, there were very few people who had a 4th grade talent on the Owl Fall Star. It was already very good if there was one in each era. If there was a 5th grade talent, the Owl Fall region would soon get the news and take them away by force. These nobles knew their own limits and didn't want to lose too much face. How could they have the face to continue the second trial after being defeated so miserably in the first trial? Therefore, when Xianyuan Chenxiao said that it was a talent assessment, they immediately retreated. The second group, come in for the assessment. These 300 people were much more honest. They were respectful and reverent to the Emperor Yi. They were afraid that the emperor would be angry and die tragically on the spot. There were a few exceptionally smart people in this group. Their eyes flickered as they stared at Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi bowed slightly and gestured for everyone to sit down. The sound of the zither was heard again. It exploded in the void and rushed directly into everyone's sea of consciousness. In an instant, it broke down their willpower. It was slightly stronger than before. When Emperor Yi was assessing them, his own strength was also slowly rising. A few smart people directly covered their ears with their hands the moment Emperor Yi played the zither. They restrained their divine senses and defended their sea of consciousness with all their might, trying to hold on for the time it took to burn a stick of incense. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sound of the zither was hurried and the impact was getting faster and faster. The pressure made everyone's Taoist heart tremble and their eyes blur. After 3 breaths, the first teenager fell down. Then they fell into a deep sleep one after another. After 10 breaths, half of them fell down. However, the other half of them were still struggling. Those teenagers who covered their ears with their hands had sweat on their foreheads. Their eyes were ferocious. They wanted to scream but couldn't. They felt that their souls were about to be controlled. At this moment, it was time to show their willpower. The stronger their willpower, the longer they could resist. Emperor Ye's spiritual strength gradually increased, but it still didn't exceed 10% of his strength. His 10 fingers plucked the strings of the zither. The strings of the zither were distorted and emitted a pleasant sound. Boom, after half an hour, 1/3 of them were still struggling. Emperor Yi pulled the 9 strings and sent his 10 fingers forward. The sound of the zither broke through the air and penetrated all the defenses. It rushed directly into everyone's sea of consciousness and suppressed their willpower in an instant. Bang bang bang. The remaining 1/3 of the young experts all fell to the ground and fell into a deep sleep. At this moment, not to mention those who came to participate in the assessment, even Xianyuan Qinshan and the others gasped. Could anyone really join the eccentric sect with Emperor Yi as a test? If there really was someone, how terrifying would their willpower be? Fairy Emperor Yi, can we not do this in the assessment? It's good to let a few people pass. Otherwise, many people will be scared away. Yi Kongqing smiled bitterly. If you don't even have the courage to take the assessment, how can you be qualified to join the eccentric sect? Emperor Yi was indifferent. Yi Qinghan had specially told him not to be soft-hearted. This eccentric sect was prepared by Yi Qinghan to find the most promising young man on Owl Falls Star to counterattack Owl Dragon region. He must not be careless. Emperor Yi only listened to Yi Qinghan. Whatever Yi Qinghan said, there was no room for negotiation. In this way, the assessment lasted for a whole day. Emperor Yi consecutively eliminated 30 groups. Out of the 6,000 people, no one passed the assessment. The strongest young man lasted for half an hour. Just a little bit more, but his divine sense was scattered by Emperor Yi and he fainted directly. He didn't pass the talent test of level 4, but could be regarded as the peak of level 3. In the end, the 3 old guys looked at each other and decided to give a consolation prize to the crowd by letting him join the eccentric sect and become the 4th disciple. I'm joining the eccentric sect. I've said it before. I, Zhao Tianquang, can do it. The young man clenched his iron fist. He was so excited that his whole body trembled, but he didn't shout. Countless people looked at Zhao Tianquang enviously. He was just a rogue cultivator without a strong family. He was unknown before, but now he was famous and envied by countless geniuses. Since the 3 seniors have made an exception for you to join the eccentric sect, do your best. Emperor Yi walked over tiredly and said to Zhao Tianquang, "Thank you, senior sister. I won't disappoint you. I won't embarrass the eccentric sect." Zhao Tianquang said respectfully, "Let me introduce you. This senior brother Lin Hong is your eldest senior brother, and this Tai Hua is your second senior brother. In the future, if there's anything you don't understand or need help with, look for them. If you can't solve it, come and ask me." Senior sister. The first day of the assessment had ended. 10,000 people had been eliminated, and only 1 person was accepted. The 3 supreme martial artists felt that they needed to appease the crowd. Otherwise, Zhao Tianquang wouldn't be qualified to join the eccentric sect. This sect was indeed crazy. The entrance assessment was more than just strict. Emperor Ye's reputation had also spread. In a day, he had defeated 10,000 people. This was probably unprecedented. Once Emperor Yi appeared, who could compete with him? Lin Hong looked at Emperor Yi with a hint of awe and admiration. He had already called himself junior brother. After all, Emperor Yi had surpassed him by too much. That night, a pair of father and son came from outside the capital. It was the hunter and his son. The middle-aged man was covered in scars, while the child had a strong will and bright eyes. He was somewhat similar to Tai Hua. After a long journey, he was exhausted. Fortunately, the army of the empire received them and welcomed them into the military tent. They even brought food and blankets. Otherwise, they would have frozen to death tonight. Lin Wutian, on the other hand, did not care about the danger. He carried a wooden sword and ran in the night without sleep or rest. He had already galloped for more than 1,000 miles. His clothes were ragged, and he was like a beggar. After going through untold hardships, he had only covered 1/10 of the journey. When he was hungry, he ate raw meat. When he was thirsty, he drank river water. He only rested for an hour every 2 days. If it were any other middle-aged man, they wouldn't be able to bear it. For the sake of cultivation, the only chance to cultivate, he was almost risking his life. I must join the eccentric sect. If I don't succeed, I will die trying. The rugged path was extremely difficult to walk on. Lin Wutian's thin body disappeared into the night as he ran out of the wilderness. A young man with such a terrifying will, who had merged his heart and sword without opening his sea of qi, was destined to be a lonely existence for the sword. Yi Qinghan had done a lot of preparation work in order to refine the Tao Master's supreme elixir. He was covered in spiritual crystals. He communicated with the earth fire and burned the smelting divine furnace red. A large number of materials were also prepared. He restored his spiritual power to its peak state and officially began to refine the elixir, ignoring the assessment outside. Chapter 149. In the Owldragon region, a cloud-piercing boat sped past like a meteor piercing through the clouds. Wherever it passed, no one knew how to avoid it. It was as if the coordinates were set and no one was piloting it. It almost killed a few rank 5 powerhouses, scaring them into cursing loudly. Yi Lingyu frowned and woke up from his sleep. He touched the back of his head and grimaced in pain. He looked at Lu Ning, who was still sleeping beside him, and frowned. Some of the memories in his sense of perception were very strange, and he felt that something was wrong. I vaguely remember that I didn't go to that star and didn't go there for training. But Yi Lingyu was puzzled. Seeing that the coordinates were set, he became even more suspicious. He twirled his fingers and summoned a golden guqin. He sat cross-legged in the cloud-piercing boat and gently stroked the 7 strings. The music was soft and lingering. It was slightly inferior to Emperor Ye's music, but it had a healing effect. The sound of the guqin lingered in Yi Lingyu's mind, soothing the restless memories. The sound of the guqin was like a divine medicine, peeling away the deepest memories. Yi Lingyu was suddenly shocked to find that his soul memories had been tampered with. At least a large portion of his memories had been cut off and then grafted over. If he had not learned the soul cultivation guqin technique, he would not have discovered the problem. Who changed my memory? Yi Lingyu smiled. The soul cultivation guqin technique could find the hidden injuries of the soul and could repair them by itself. It was an extremely powerful secret technique that could restore the memory that Yi Qinghan had erased. There was a sea of people in the martial arts arena. A group left and a group came, all for the illusory hope of becoming a disciple of the crazy sect. Little Li, you have to work hard later. You have been determined to cultivate since you were young. At the age of 3, you opened your sea of qi with a rare treasure. At the age of 5, your sea of qi was completed. Now, whether you can join the crazy sect and become an official cultivator depends on your luck. The hunter, Li Jiuchong, said in a deep voice. Yes, father, don't worry. I will definitely pass the assessment. I saw their assessment. I know that as long as I don't fall asleep, I will pass the assessment. I will definitely not fall asleep. Little Li clenched her small fist and said solemnly, Father, come with me to take the test. Perhaps you can cultivate as well. Little Li was a little reluctant and said seriously, I'm old now, and I'm sure I don't have the aptitude. The masters of the insane sect will definitely not accept me. Li Jiuchong laughed and was very open-minded about the situation. Hurry up and line up. Get ready to take the test. The guards of the city guards maintained order and quickly arranged everyone into groups to take the test. Xiao Li pulled on Li Jiuchong's large hand and desperately dragged him into the group. Li Jiuchong couldn't do anything. After all, Xiao Li was only 6 years old. It was normal that she couldn't leave him, so he could only symbolically take the test. Emperor Yi suppressed all the heroes at an extremely fast speed. Every half an incense stick of time, a new batch of people would appear. Every 2 hours he would rest. His cultivation speed was also increasing faster and faster. The tests would only become stricter and stricter. Soon, it was Little Li's team's turn. The father and son, one in front and one behind, looked seriously at Emperor Yi. They were very cautious, afraid that they would accidentally fall into Emperor Yi's trap and fall into a deep sleep. Thus, The sound of the zither was pleasing to the ears, circling the enchantment and filling the ears of the heroes. Everyone's soul was shaken and illusions appeared in front of their eyes. Many people couldn't resist the temptation and fell into a deep sleep in the blink of an eye. Xiao Li's pink face was full of persistence and fortitude. She kept whispering, "I don't want to sleep, I don't want to sleep." Li Jiucheng's eyes widened. He also wanted to join the insane sect with Xiao Li. He used his willpower to control his soul and not let himself fall into a deep sleep. Li Jiucheng's willpower was definitely strong. Although he didn't fight on the battlefield, the forest was his battlefield. Without cultivation, there were no less than hundreds of scars all over his body. Every time, he was covered in scars. If it wasn't for his terrifying willpower, he would have died a tragic death. After half an incense stick of time, Xiao Li was still trying to divert her attention. Her eyes were a little scattered and she was still whispering, "I don't want to sleep, I don't want to sleep, I'm taking the test. It's all fake, I don't want to sleep." Li Jiucheng clenched his teeth and his 5 fingers pierced into his muscles. Blood was flowing out, but he still endured. His willpower was supported by Xiao Li. She wanted to protect him and didn't want to leave him alone in the insane sect. Everyone else had fallen. Only this pair of father and son, who didn't seem to have the slightest bit of cultivation, were able to withstand it. "Ah, this little guy is so cute." The parrot nibbled on a spiritual fruit and commented on this pair of father and son. "This person's body is full of wounds. Many of them are fatal, but he's still not dead. His willpower is really terrifying. I estimate that he can hold on for the time it takes to burn a stick of incense." Xinyuan Qinshiao frowned and looked at Li Jiucheng. He was just a mortal, but he actually had such a terrifying willpower, which surprised him. His willpower is to protect. If his talent is good, this person is a promising talent. Yi Kongqing nodded with satisfaction. It's a pity that he's too old. He looks like he's in his 30s. He has already missed the ability to open up his sea of qi. Lu Guyun shook her head and sentenced Li Jiucheng to death. Time passed quickly. Li Jiucheng's iron hands were inserted into his flesh and blood. His eyes were cold and indifferent, without a trace of emotion. It was as if he was confronting his prey and didn't want to retreat. Xiao Li's divine sense was scattered. Her mouth was still murmuring, and her body was swaying. She was about to fall, but she didn't fall. She was like a roly-poly toy, spinning in place. Hold on, hold on." Everyone was excited. They raised their fists and shouted, as if their own sons were taking the test. Most of the examiners were shouting, hoping that there would be one more person who passed the test to give everyone some confidence. Even a 6-year-old child could pass. Why couldn't they pass? The bounded domain blocked their shouts. Xiao Li and Li Jiucheng couldn't hear them, but they were still holding on. Xinyuan Qinshiao and others stared at the incense that was about to burn out. They clenched their iron fists and wished that they could finish the incense. Emperor Ye's test was too difficult. Until now, only Zhao Tianquang had persisted to this step. Coupled with his talent of the peak of the 3rd grade, he was promoted to a disciple of the crazy sect. The others were all eliminated. These days, their efforts were in vain. If these 2 people could pass the test, it might inspire everyone's fighting spirit. 10. 8. Almost everyone was counting down. There were only a few breaths left before the time was up. Li Jiucheng was bleeding from his 7 orifices, almost tearing his flesh apart. He didn't blink and glared at Emperor Yi. He didn't see her as a goddess at all. Instead, he saw her as a prey that would be killed in the blink of an eye. This was willpower. No one could resist the charm of Emperor Ye's music, but as a mortal hunter, Li Jiucheng did it. Relying on his terrifying willpower and the will to not fall before the enemy, he finally made it to the end. 3, 2, 1. Bang. I don't want to sleep. Renhuang Ye's Guqin music came to an abrupt end. After Little Li finished speaking, she fell asleep, coincidentally pressing the line. This caused Renhuang Ye's lips to curl into a faint smile. Finally, someone had made it through. She had truly made it through. Li Jiucheng waited for the music to dissipate and hugged Xiao Li, wanting to wake him up with a worried expression. "Wait, don't wake him up. His soul is very tired right now." Let him rest. Emperor Yi immediately stopped Li Jiucheng. Then, did I pass the test too? Li Jiucheng's voice was hoarse. He was exhausted to the extreme, but he still endured. Yes. In a few days your talent will be tested. Follow the guards to rest. Emperor Yi calmly said. After a few days of training, Emperor Yi had become more and more confident. He was now able to hold his own. On the 20th day of the test, just as it was about to end, a boy wrapped in animal skin appeared in front of everyone. He held a wooden sword in his hand that was already dyed red with blood. Some of it was the blood of ferocious beasts, but most of it was his own blood. Lin Wuting, a 12-year-old boy, relying on his own efforts, crossed thousands of miles of mountains and rivers in just 20 days, almost without sleep or rest, and stepped onto his own battlefield. A terrifying existence with such willpower was destined to become famous on Owl Fall Star because of this test. Li Jiucheng might be a person with a terrifying will, but Lin Wutian was the most terrifying existence. No one was more stubborn than him. Lin Wutian's heart was beating fast at this moment. He looked at the gate of the imperial capital and grinned. Holding the wooden sword, he stepped into the city resolutely. The crazy sect. I will definitely join the crazy sect. No test is an obstacle in my eyes. I will crush the obstacles in front of me with the sword in my hand. Lin Wutian was cold and arrogant. He ignored the gazes of others and walked quickly. Many people thought he was a beggar and pinched their noses to scold him, but he was emotionless. Go away, little beggar. Beggars are not allowed to enter the city for a few days. It will affect the image of the Lulan Empire. The guard coldly refused Lin Wutian's entry. I am here to participate in the test. Lin Wutian did not say a word. His aura was as cold as a sword, as if a sword was walking. The guard was stunned. At this moment, Yi Qinghan appeared from his seclusion with a few jade brocade boxes in his hand. The surroundings were sealed by elemental seals, so no aura leaked out. Tap, tap, tap. Yi Qinghan walked to the square and glanced at the crowd. He found that the first test had ended and was just waiting for the announcement. Emperor Yi, who had been working hard for more than 20 days, was so tired that his face was pale. When he felt Yi Qinghan's return, he quickly stood up and said, "Uncle, the test is over." A total of 2 million people took the test, and a total of 12 people passed the first test. 12 people out of 3 million people. This test was insane. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently. What he needed was someone with a strong will. Without a strong will, it was useless no matter how talented they were. Thank you for your hard work. Yi Qinghan rubbed Emperor Ye's head and looked down at the young people who were still hoping for a glimmer of hope. He said coldly, the test is over. If you can't even hold on for half an incense stick's time, leave. Don't wait anymore. The insane sect needs someone with a strong will. Wait, I haven't taken the test either. Lin Wutian squeezed through the crowd. The people around him pinched their noses and cursed. They retreated to the side and made way for him because he was too smelly. Yi Qinghan looked at the wooden sword in Lin Wutian's hand and the way he walked. His eyes lit up. Gu Jiandao. A figure flashed in Yi Qinghan's mind. Yes, this Lin Wutian had a certain temperament of Gu Qingyu. They were not the same person, but they had the same Dao heart. Chapter 150. Lin Wutian's whole body was emitting a foul smell. The soles of his feet were rotten, and the bloody bones in his palms were clearly visible. However, he didn't look aggrieved at all, only excited and expectant. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but feel somewhat satisfied. A person with Lin Wutian's willpower would either fall on the path of cultivation or be glorious for thousands of years. Gu Qingyu, for example, would absolutely shock the entire Xiaolong region and spread his name throughout the universe. Where did you come from? When did you come? Yi Qinghan asked seriously. I came from a small town in the border of Qingzhou. Since the crazy sect announced that they were recruiting disciples, I went out alone. After 30 days and nights, I traveled thousands of miles. Please give me a chance. I want to take the test, and I am confident that I can pass. Lin Wutian's face was full of expectation as he said respectfully. Traveling thousands of miles in 30 days and nights, even a small cultivator in the blood ignition realm would need to rest and not travel day and night. You have really impressed me. However, you don't need to take the test. Yi Qinghan flicked a medicinal pill from his fingertip. When it touched Lin Wutian's body, it turned into powder and poured into his body through his clothes. The majestic medicinal properties rushed into his bones and limbs, quickly healing his injured body. Lin Wutian's whole body trembled. He only felt that his blood was boiling. The wooden sword in his hand trembled slightly, and a cold sword intent burst out. A terrifying and invincible aura gushed out from his eyes. Why don't I take the test? Am I not qualified? Lin Wutian frowned and asked. No, no one on Shaoyun planet can teach you. I am taking you as a disciple on behalf of a friend. Yi Qinghan's eyes surged with a special emotion. He owed Gu Qingyu too much. The Bone Sword Mountain collapsed, and Gu Qingyu's whereabouts were still unknown. No one knew whether he was alive or dead. With a sigh, he spoke of the pain in his heart. A proud and sorrowful aura rushed out from his body. Yi Qinghan gazed into the void. He wanted to see through Xiaolong region and find Gu Qingyu to repay his kindness back then. At the same time, at the distant end of the Xiaolong region, on a deathly still star, a vigorous and lonely figure stood proudly on a lonely mountain. He held a sharp sword that reached the sky in his hand. His aura was converged and didn't disperse. His black hair was draped over his shoulders and fluttered in the wind. His side profile looked like a work of God, and his entire body emitted a lonely sword aura. He was like a white snow lotus that stood proudly in the wind at the peak of the 9 heavens. He was arrogant, cold, and disdained to be associated with the common people. In his life, he had only one sword and one brother. He spent the rest of his life alone, only to seek the supreme vicissitudes of the great Tao, to prove his Tao, to be crowned as an emperor, to shatter the void, and to lead the human race to stand proudly in the endless universe. This was his lifelong dream. Gu Qingyu was the only one who could portray the sword. He was so lonely, like a hero, destined to be sad. He stretched out his slender fingers and gently stroked the scar on his neck. With his cultivation, such a small wound could be easily healed, but he let the scar remain. Yi Qinghan, this scar is left for you. It serves as a warning to me that my solitary sword Tao has yet to reach the true peak. After I destroy those shameless villains in Xiaolong region, it will be the day I erase this scar. If your spirit is in heaven, bless me to succeed in seizing the sword seed this time. If I fail, we will be brothers in the next life. The sword seed was the soul of the sword. A 5th-grade sword didn't have its sword seed, and its spirit didn't have any intelligence. However, once it had a sword seed, it could transform and merge with its master at any time. Its battle strength would increase by 100 times, or even 1,000 times. Whoosh! Body and sword merged as one, breaking through the void and speeding away. Relying on his physical body, he crossed the stars and the universe. His speed was even more terrifying than the cloud-piercing ship. The stars moved, and all the shackles in front of him turned into flames and scattered with the wind. Xiaolong region, Great Buddha Golden Temple. A sea of people came from all directions to congratulate. Countless Buddhist disciples were wearing golden kasayas, looking very dignified. Even the weakest among them was at the heavenly passage realm. In Buddhist orthodoxy, it was also called the Buddha realm. One had to admit that the great Buddhist orthodoxy in the endless universe was very powerful. It was a rare 8th-grade power, and even a small temple had countless experts. Ajura Qianyi, shining with Buddhist light, had a golden kasaya draped over his shoulders. He looked bright and dignified, looking very benevolent and compassionate. He was filled with an overwhelming aura. Amitabha. Reverend Shiming has experienced 1,500 years of cultivation history. Half a month ago, he passed away in a sitting posture in a Buddhist cave. Our Buddha is merciful and gave him the Buddha Heart Sword Seed relic to enlighten the world. Buddha will eventually sense it if our hearts are kind and benevolent. Ajura Qianyi put his palms together, and his Buddhist power was vast and mighty. He wanted to purify the people who came to pay their respects. Taoist Ajura, I heard that Reverend Shiming passed away in a sitting posture and gave birth to the Buddha Heart Sword Seed relic. I'm here to pay my respects. Emperor Xinyi, who was wearing a golden imperial robe, stood on a dragon carriage and was pulled by sacred beast Fire Kirin. He had a majestic aura and was riding the wind and breaking the waves, rushing over from afar. Congratulations, Taoist Ajura, for obtaining the Buddha Heart Sword Seed. The great Buddha Golden Temple's strength has improved. Lu Su, the great marshal revered of the Lu family, appeared outside the great Buddha Golden Temple, wearing a willow leaf robe specially made by the Lu family. His aura was vast and mighty, suppressing the heavens. Haha, I haven't seen you for 8 years, and now you're even more powerful than before. Ajura Qianyi laughed and greeted them with cupped fists. After all, these two were rare super-existences in Xiaolong region. They were both people who had participated in the peak battle back then. Taoist Ajura, you seem to have a stronger Buddha heart after killing Yi Qinghan. It seems like you have a chance to advance to the immortal sect's great Buddha realm. Emperor Xinye's eyes flashed with killing intent as he cupped his fists and said, there was only one immortal sect expert in Xiaolong region, and that was the region master of Xiaolong region. However, this region master did not care about worldly affairs and was in seclusion all year round. At that level, he was not interested in worldly affairs at all. Therefore, a great martial revered expert could dominate Xiaolong region. No one would have thought that another immortal sect expert would suddenly appear. They seemed to be in harmony with each other, but in fact, they were more vigilant against each other than guarding against thieves. If anyone had the chance to break through to the immortal sect, they would definitely be coveted by others. If they had the chance, they would definitely kill him. Everyone understood each other's thoughts. Therefore, on the surface they laughed, but no one knew what they were thinking. Ajura Qianye pretended not to know. He stretched out his hands and bowed, inviting the two great martial revered experts into the great Golden Buddha Temple. Many people had already gathered inside the great Golden Buddha Temple. There were many Tao masters and 7 or 8 great martial revered experts. If Yi Qinghan was here, he would definitely recognize them because they had all participated in the encirclement and annihilation of Shao Zhanxing. Taoist Ajura, please take out the Buddha Heart Sword Seed. Let us all pay homage to the Buddha's boundless Dharma. When the crowd saw Ajura Qianye come in with 2 great martial revered experts, they all cupped their fists and said, rest assured, everyone. Today, I will take out the Buddha Heart Sword Seed Saraira for everyone to comprehend for 2 hours. However, before that, we should discuss how to kill the traitor Gu Qingyu. If he is still alive, we will not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Ajura Qianye said coldly. At that moment, he did not have any Buddha heart at all. If Gu Qingyu is to be killed, then what about Sikong Qingjun? One of the 3 supreme battle kings of the Xiaolong territory has already died. The remaining 2 should also be buried. Lu Su smiled coldly and said cruelly, these people knew each other well. There was no need to beat around the bush. They had all participated in the event of that year. Except for Ajura Qianye, who still had to pretend, the others all tore off their hypocritical masks. At that moment, Gu Qingyu quietly appeared outside the great Golden Buddha Temple. When he saw the Dharma Golden Seal covering 1,000 miles of the temple, a trace of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. He turned into an illusory Gu Qingyu and unexpectedly ignored the bounded domain and directly went through it. Gu Qingyu moved the stars and directly appeared outside the cultivation cave without alerting anyone. His sword pierced through the air and killed 2 guards at the beginner level of the Tao Master. Then he directly entered the cave. The cave was shining with golden light. The Dharma was constantly spreading out and suppressing all evil. No evil spirits dared to approach this place. On the futon in the cultivation cave, a heart-shaped white jade sword about a foot long was emitting a majestic Dharma light. It was like an ancient divine weapon. Its overwhelming aura made people unable to breathe. Those who were not righteous did not dare to look directly at it. Those whose Taoist heart was not stable did not dare to look directly at it. This was the Buddha Heart Sword Seed Saraira. It contained the 1,500 years of cultivation experience of Tao Master Shiming and the Supreme Dharma Profound. The one who had the Saraira would get the true inheritance. However, no one had expected that Gu Qingyu would appear in the cultivation cave at the back of the mountain without alerting anyone. What's more, he quietly killed 2 experts at the intermediate level of the Tao Master. Gu Qingyu smiled. He stretched out his hand and directly held the Buddha Heart Sword Seed Saraira in his palm. He did not feel uncomfortable at all, which showed his Taoist heart and temperament. Tao Master Shiming, you have devoted yourself to cultivation. The Saraira of your death should not be used by a villain. Gu Qingyu turned his wrist and the Saraira disappeared. Then he walked out of the back of the mountain and soared into the sky. He turned into a horrible sharp sword and wanted to split the sky and earth. No Buddha temple, I don't want it, Gu Qingyu shouted in a low voice. His momentum was unprecedented. The sword chi was fierce and overbearing, full of destructive aura. In a flash, it cut the sky and directly chopped down. Boom, 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 the whole great Buddha planet was collapsing. The great Buddha Golden Temple was shattered. Wherever the sword chi passed, everything was turned into powder. Thousands of experts were killed by this sword. Hundreds of figures rushed out of the great Buddha Golden Temple. They were all Tao masters, and there were no less than 10 great martial venerables. Their faces were covered in dust. Looking at the raised great Buddha Golden Temple and the terrifying figure in the sky, they could not help but gasp. Shura Qinya, Emperor Xinyi, remember, this sword is just the beginning. I have only one sword and one brother in my life. If he dies, you will all be buried with him. I, Gu Qingyu, swear by my sword that I will kill all of you in my lifetime. Sush. Gu Qingyu broke the void and rushed into the endless universe. Shura Qinya was furious and shouted. He took the Buddha Heart Sword Seed Saraira. If you don't want to die, stop him for me. In a flash, hundreds of people rushed out crazily. The whole Shaolong region was in chaos. The horrible murderous aura shrouded half of the Shaolong region. The aura rushed into the galaxy and the sky collapsed. Yi Qinghan, who was still on the Shaolong star, shot out a golden light from his eyes as if he could see through the shackles of the universe. He rushed into the depths of the Shaolong region. The sword chi was too horrible and familiar. He only felt a trace of the aura and knew the identity of the swordsman. It's Qingyu. Yi Qinghan's azure dragon arm was about to explode. The demon dragon saber was emitting a murderous aura. His blood was boiling and his fighting spirit was soaring. Chapter 151. Shaolong Region. A sword pierced through the Milky Way, startling the entire region. Then, the aura disappeared in a flash. Great Buddha Gold Star rushed out hundreds of terrifying auras, rushing to the end of the Milky Way. The sky kept collapsing, and the Milky Way flowed backward. A divine sword tore apart the heaven and earth, instantly moving thousands of miles away. The supreme way of sword was invincible. Thousands of Daos in the sky of Shaolong region rumbled, and the law descended. Countless experts flew up to the void to watch, but they didn't dare to interfere. Yi Qinghan looked up at the sky. A sword rainbow pierced through Shaolong region, and hundreds of experts chased after it. The Milky Way was turbulent, and the situation was extremely dangerous. Damn it! Yi Qinghan's veins bulged, and the veins on his blue dragon arm bulged. He wanted to break through the confinement of his body. Brother is fighting with others, but I can't do anything. The Milky Way is vast, and no one can do this except for these great martial venerables and mid-level Tao venerables. Yi Qinghan was only in Tao Insight realm, and there was a huge gap between him and Tao venerables. At this moment he could only feel helpless and angry, but he couldn't help. The only thing he could do now was to pray that Gu Qingyu could escape from everyone's pursuit. Gu Qingyu, your brother is dead. Do you still want to live? A voice exploded in the endless Shaolong region, and it could be heard clearly from countless miles away. She must have gone with him. Go to hell to be brothers. You demon, you dare to kill the monks of Great Buddha Gold Temple. Today you will die. Azura Qianyi roared, and his Buddhist power pierced through the sky. He was the fastest, and he was close to the immortal gate realm. Gu Qingyu transformed into way of sword and fled, but he didn't pull away. Hearing the clamor behind him, he sneered and said, "I live to kill you villains. When I refine the Saraira, it will be the day you die." The hatred between the two sides had reached an unresolvable level. There was no other choice but to kill. It was a real fight to the death, and there was no room for reconciliation. In the Milky Way, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Dead stars were shattered, and flames burned the sky. The speeding meteors were extinguished by the experts with a snap of the fingers. This was the terrifying war between high-level experts. Whoosh! Gu Qingyu's figure flashed across the sky above Owl Falls Star. His domineering and cold aura crushed everyone's Dao heart. At his level, one sword strike could penetrate a small star like Owl Falls Star. Everyone was terrified. In a battle between masters, the mortals would suffer. Even Fate Palace realm practitioners felt powerless. If the Owl Falls Star was shattered, Yi Qinghan might not be able to survive. Roar! A roar of anger rang out from the depths of the Demon Valley continent, shaking the heavenly river, causing the Dao hearts of the supreme experts to tremble. Gu Qingyu's eyes flashed past, piercing through the limpid autumn waters. He saw the Kuei Ox in the Demon Valley continent's blood prison. The passage of time rotated as he directly descended. Come, destroy this small star and release the vicious beast. Let's see who can escape its devouring. The corners of Gu Qingyu's lips curled up, provoking the experts who were chasing after him. Azura Qianye and the others chased into Owl Falls Star. Just as they were about to attack, they were stopped by Monarch Xinyi. "It's the Kuei cow. Primordial divine beast, don't attack the star." Everyone's expression changed greatly as they looked at the blood prison. The Kuei Ox was struggling, trying to break free from the confinement and rush out of the blood prison. Its Dao heart was almost shattered, and its face was deathly pale. "It's the 8th rank Kuei Ox. Heavens, how did this thing appear in the Owl Dragon region?" Lu Su was shocked, his robes fluttering as he tried to escape. Azura Qianye's face was ashen. Buddhist light enveloped Owl Falls Star, wrapping Gu Qingyu within. He said coldly, "Gu Qingyu, leave the Saraira behind, and I won't kill you today." "Is that so? Why don't you dare to attack? You're afraid of the Kuei Ox coming out, right? You're afraid, but I'm not. Do you want me to release it for you?" Gu Qingyu's purple robes fluttered as he raised a bone sword, wanting to split Owl Falls Star apart. "You dare? Stop. You lunatic. Even if you want to perish together with us, don't implicate countless creatures." Everyone was scared to death, but they didn't want to admit it. They could only drag out the countless creatures of Owl Falls Star. A group of lowly people knows about countless creatures? There are tens of billions of humans on Owl Falls Star. Why don't you call them innocent creatures? You kill people who deserve to die? Gu Qingyu laughed madly. He looked at everyone's deathly pale appearance with even more disdain. Everyone was silent. They wanted to retreat, but Gu Qingyu went crazy. He directly shattered Owl Falls Star and released a terrifying existence. The Kuei Ox roared again. Its eyes shot out red light, piercing through heaven and earth as it stared at everyone. Everyone felt as if their souls were sealed in ice as they continuously retreated towards the central continent. Yi Qinghan's whole body was tense. It was too dangerous at this moment. Once these people lost control, any one of them could shatter Owl Falls Star. Countless creatures would be under their control. Obviously, this was Yi Qinghan's place of residence. It couldn't be shattered, or else his identity would be exposed immediately. "Divine Bird, give this cosmos ring to the expert swordsman." Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted his voice. He took out the universe ring containing the sealed ancient beast and put it on the parrot's little claw. "Fuck, get lost. There are so many cruel human experts. Do you want me to die?" The parrot was furious as it roared inwardly. If you don't give it to him, Gu Qingyu might really shatter Owl Falls Star and make everyone perish together. Since we're going to die anyway, we might as well die a bit more heroically. Let these so-called great martial revered experts see your divine bird's might. Yi Qinghan said in a muffled voice. The parrot was speechless. The parrot was scared of death. With so many experts, even a bit of the aftermath would be enough to kill it. However, Yi Qinghan was persuading it in every way possible. If it still didn't listen, the consequences would be severe. Master, I've been loyal and devoted my entire life. Could it be that you want me to throw away my life? The parrot grabbed Yi Qinghan's clothes and said in alarm, I believe you have great luck. You definitely won't die. Go. Perform a meritorious service for me, and I won't treat you unfairly in the future. Yi Qinghan coldly clenched his fists. If the parrot dared to speak any more nonsense, he would definitely throw it over. The parrot wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Its legs trembled as it looked up into the sky a few hundred kilometers away. There were nearly 100 experts there, and any one of them could easily crush Owl Falls Star. As for it, it felt a chill run down its spine. Master, if I sacrifice myself, you must remember that today is the anniversary of my death every year. Burn some female parrot for me. The parrot solemnly took the heaven and earth ring and flew toward Gu Qingyu. The wind blows and the clouds rise. The brave warrior will never return. The parrot muttered as it flapped its wings. With every step it took, it would look back 3 times. Seeing Yi Qinghan's resolute gaze, it clenched its teeth and charged over. Brave warriors! I'm just passing by. Please don't attack. When it was still a few dozen kilometers away, the parrot began to cry out loudly for fear that someone would attack and destroy it. Damn it, what a solemn moment. The parrot's words had completely shaken away all the killing intent. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. What kind of bird was this? How could its intelligence be so high? The countless creatures kneeling on the ground looked up into the sky and saw the parrot trembling as it flew toward the group of experts. Their hearts hung in the air for fear that it would anger the experts and destroy Owl Falls Star in a thunderous rage. Brave warriors! Life is precious, but loyalty is even more valuable. I've been loyal all my life, and my entire body is filled with courage. For the countless lives of the people, I've come to advise you not to attack. The terrifying Kuei in the blood prison has been corroded by the endless blood sea's killing intent and has long since lost its intelligence. Once it breaks the seal, we'll all die. Everyone. Yi Qinghan was speechless. Was this bird really going to deliver the heaven and earth rings? Why did it feel like it was trying to stop a fight? The austere atmosphere was completely destroyed by this sentence. Everyone's fingertips trembled as they coldly watched the parrot. Gu Qingyu's entire body was ice cold. Sword energy filled his body. A wisp of sword energy could destroy this reckless parrot, so he didn't stop it from approaching. Instead, he noticed the heaven and earth rings on its claws. Sirs, I have a secret. Please don't attack. Wait until I'm done. The parrot was deadly earnest as it slowly approached Gu Qingyu. 10 miles, 8 miles. Let me tell you. In fact, the Owl Falling Star is just a fragment of the ancient Sirius star. There's more than one Kuei sealed here. There are also some terrifying evil spirits. If you awaken them and release them, then I can only congratulate you. You'll all die. How do you know? Emperor Shenyi coldly asked. 'Cause I'm an ancient divine bird. The parrot rushed through everyone's aura and tightly grabbed Gu Qingyu's clothes. It swayed in the wind as it roared, "Motherfucker, you scared me to death. My little sweetheart." Everyone. Gu Qingyu retracted his sword energy and looked at the parrot hanging on his clothes. He was puzzled. This lowly bird was too lowly. What was it talking about? Handsome, you have to protect me. I'll give you a treasure. It'll definitely scare off this group of shameless wretches. The parrot grabbed his clothes and directly climbed onto Gu Qingyu's shoulder. It was extremely wretched. Motherfucker, Azura Qianye and the others were angry. Who was the wretched one? Gu Qingyu. Gu Qingyu took the universe ring and probed it with his divine sense. He found a dark and terrifying stone. The creature inside was constantly wriggling, as if it was showing signs of awakening. He used a drop of blood to recognize it as its master. He casually waved his hand and took out the stone. A terrifying and gloomy baleful aura filled the sky and instantly enveloped Owl Falling Star.
What?
The Kuei cow seemed to be frightened. It roared repeatedly and retreated into the depths of the blood prison. Gu Qingyu's face was deathly pale. He felt that his vitality was being devoured. The creature inside the stone was rapidly awakening. Emperor Xinyi and the others were greatly alarmed. They continuously retreated. They angrily looked at the parrot and roared, "You actually gave such a vicious creature to the demon. If I had known, I would have killed you, you bastard. You're the bastard. Your whole family are bastards. Bastard, this divine bird is the 10,000 beast divine emperor. You dare to insult this divine bird? I'll burn you to death." The parrot stood on Gu Qingyu's shoulder and immediately felt confident. It no longer cared about these experts and was incomparably arrogant. "Motherfucker! You dare to insult this lord? What kind of bird is this?" Emperor Xinyi was furious. As a 5th-rank emperor, there was no one in Owl Dragon region who didn't revere him. He was actually insulted by a bird. "I already said that this divine bird is the 10,000 beast divine emperor. So what if I insult you? You're not happy? Endure it, overcome it. In any case, I won't change. Don't get angry and fall sick." The parrot knew that these people were Yi Qinghan's enemies. It didn't give them any face. Its words were malicious and could anger them to death. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.